Good evening. Today is Wednesday, April the 15th, 2026. It's 7 p.m. I'd like to call the special meeting budget workshop to order.
Troy Lemire.
Kevin Bishop, Paul Marino.
Paul Harrington.
Tyler Salashi.
Lauren Dombrowski.
William Hester.
Cheryl Heffernan McGlynn.
William Bozo.
Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item 3, consider and possibly act on the town manager's, the Board of Selectmen's proposed budget. Recap.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So to set the stage, just a few quick items, housekeeping items. First, our town clerk is absent tonight. He's at a town clerk's conference, and our finance director, for the well-being of all, is really not feeling well, so I kept her completely away from the building. But we do have Tom here tonight, so thank you, Tom, and thank you, Lauren, for filling in this evening. I thought it was important, if the board so pleases, we have the mill rate calculation sheet. We've added the motor vehicle cap formula into it. Kind of recap where we left Monday night before we go forward. So with all of the changes that were voted on Monday night, some of them being reductions, some of them being increases, the biggest increase is roughly $821,000 in roads. Currently, we stand at a 3.39 mill rate, which is an 11.61% increase in the mill rate. That is factoring in everything that we took care of on Monday night. You will note that when you left here Monday night, the mill rate was actually 32.55. We had to factor in that mill rate, the motor vehicle cap, which we slid to this slide, which actually then and to talk a little bit more about the motor vehicle cap, the state of Connecticut only allows you to tax motor vehicles at 32.46. We were proposing a mill rate of 32.55, so I pulled all the vehicles out at 32.46 and then see what we needed to raise, and then ended up being the new mill rate of 32.55. So that's how, or 32.56, it was 32.55. So we went up, 0.1 of a mil, not a whole heck of a lot, but we had said that. One of the questions that were out there that I did email the Board of Selectmen, and I'll open it up to the public, and it was for informational purposes, is the proposed roads, the 5 or 6 roads that totaled about $821,000. Those were full roads that were being paved, except for Old New Hartford Road. I'm going to mess up the number, but roughly 2,100 feet of that road would be paved out of the $821,000 that's being proposed in the draft budget that we ended on Monday night at around 9:30 at night. Is there any questions?
I have one question. Just, we should get this put into the spreadsheet somewhere. But what is the actual tax increase percentage? I see it's 11 of the mill rate, but what's the actual tax increase? Dollars. Or is that 11.6 the dollars?
Well, it's 11.61%. I think maybe what you're asking is then when we go to the, I think the board really likes this sheet. What is it per each property?
No, again, and maybe it's one and the same, but I just wanted to make sure I understand. You have the increase in mill rate is 11.61%. Is that the same thing as calling it the actual tax increase? So if you paid $1,000 last year, you're going to pay 11.61% more this year?
That would be correct, sir.
Okay.
So if you looked at...
That's actually the tax increase.
Correct. So the overall, when you look at the expenditure side of the budget, I don't know if we break it down to the percentage down here. I do not. But roughly the percentage of the expenses went up about 8.5%. You say, well, they're not, because remember the grand list changed, so you have more revenue coming in. But if the mill rate stayed the same, the tax increase would be be zero. So I think your answer to your question is the tax increase that's proposed on this working draft is 11.61%.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, keeping in mind that tonight, we did say we were reserving it for the Board of Education. Thank you, Dr. Luby, for attending tonight. I know I did send an email out. We did invite Gilbert School. They declined. I know the board had asked me to re-ask again, or had asked the chairwoman if she could attend. They were declined for both tonight's meeting and also Monday night's meeting.
They have 2 meetings this week, and Monday night, that's why they're not here.
Mr. Harrington, is there any, I know things move quickly, is there any change as far as revenue or any new recommendations or anything that we can do there?
There's always changes in revenue. So one of the items, there's a few things we can talk about. I'm going to pull levers. They're unconventional, but here are 2 levers that you all should debate. First one being is town-owned property. Currently, we did not account for any town-owned property being sold in this current year's budget. I can tell you that we have closed in on almost $400,000 of town-owned property. Big portion of that is the bachelor school, right? When we put together the current budget that we're in, I don't think anyone predicted where that would potentially go, so it was a little bit of a risk. You know, should we include that big a number? Are we going to continue down the road? I know we're waiting back for my letter for planning and zoning to list some of these town-owned properties. I know we're in a revenue crunch. I know we're looking at an 11.61% tax increase. If the board was looking to soften it, maybe a debate should be centered around what should we do with town-owned property.
What was the total dollars last year, or this current year that we're in?
This current year, like I said, it was probably close to $400,000.
And where is those funds being held?
They're just being held in the general fund. So we're gonna, when we get the audit at the end of this year, at the end of the fiscal year, we're gonna show a surplus in revenue collection, and it'll just end up in our savings account. We can't spend those dollars in this current year budget because although in our own budgets at home, when we have extra money, we can spend it. We can only spend what's on the expense side of things. We can't overspend on the revenue side.
But we could spend it on the upcoming budget.
We
We're
could,
working on
yeah.
it.
And it's hard to do that in a way you kind of are, because we're suggesting for capitals, we're gonna take some money out of the savings account. We won't have that answer of how much money's in the savings account based on this year's budget, because it closes on June 30th, and we've already had our budget, you know, out to at least the
But
town
we
meeting.
could estimate a certain amount of money. If you're saying there's 400,000 there now, we're talking about taking some out for capital. We could say maybe there's gonna be about we can estimate there's gonna be 200,000 at least available, correct?
You know, easily, yeah,
Easily.
yes.
So that could actually go into reduce the burden on the taxpayer by that 200,000, correct?
Certainly can. A different way of looking at it is, I believe, you know, because we had those, I don't know, 4 or 5 properties, I believe those will sell in the next fiscal year, beginning in July 1st. I wouldn't necessarily worry about what's going in there, what we didn't account for, but what we're going to bring in next year's receipts. And I truly feel confident that we will at least collect $200,000 in new town-owned property that will sell beginning July 1st.
So we could put 200,000 from our fund, and then 200,000 from future sales, for a total of $400,000 to offset the ask to the taxpayers, correct?
You could definitely do that, yes.
Would that be creating a cliff, be fiscally irresponsible? Tell me what your thoughts are on that.
So I think if you go that scenario of 400, I think you potentially are creating a cliff. I think looking at how much town-owned property we own, I think we're gonna have a few years of being able to inject town-owned property sales into our budget. I think when you go up into that, personal opinion, that 400,000 mark, I think that might be a little too high. Unless you say, you know, this is for one-time capital purchases, right? And you can look at capital purchases many different ways. Capital purchases can be looked at, well, every year you're gonna have capital purchase. I would agree with that statement.
So we
but it's
could-
not a guarantee.
So we could put it into the roads, that
You could-
800,000 for the roads, which is a one-time for those particular roads. And if we're gonna add funds into the subsequent budget for roads, that would be another one-time. It's not something, not part of our operating expenses, so to speak, correct?
That, yes, yep,
So that would be fiscally responsible.
yes. In my eyes. Somebody may view it differently, but in my eyes as the town manager, I would say that's fiscally responsible.
And I don't think any of us here, at least I know I'm not a complete financial, I balance budgets and do all sorts of things for my business and my clients, but, you know, we rely a lot on your perspective on this. And if you're looking at as one-time capital expenditure, which the roads would constitute, then, you know, we could at least put that 400,000 towards the roads and offset that ask, which would reduce the ask to the taxpayers and the impact on the taxpayers without it being a fiscal cliff.
I want to, and it's, when I was looking at things, so we don't change many line items in the budget, right? Because you never know if you're going to reuse them again. But lo and behold, and I know it's hard to see, but within this revenue sheet, at one time, the town actually created a line item that said sale of town-owned / foreclosed property. So at one time, we actually probably placed a number in that. And you can see back in 2004, we collected $208,000 in that line item.
Collected it, but we didn't budget for it.
We didn't budget for it. So again, that, and I think I want to just stress this point, that money didn't disappear, it just went to our savings account. You know, it didn't go anywhere. I don't want anyone to think that, you know, anything bad happened with that money. It just went into our savings account. Similar where we put in a collection rate for people's property taxes. And sometimes, you know, we have more people paying the property tax. It still goes into, you know, the general fund or, you know, the savings account, even though we said we were only going to collect $30 million. Then we had a great year and everybody paid their taxes and nobody was delinquent. We may have collected 31 million, we accounted 31 million. Our budget just showed that it was 30 million.
So so we could put into the budget as a revenue source, this 400,000 that we just talked about, as a way to offset the tax increase, correct?
I think he said 200,000 would be what you're comfortable with.
No, he said 200 from the account that we already have, and then 200 anticipated income coming in from next year. Revenues are always anticipated, because there's no guarantee they're actually going to be received.
Right, but I thought you wanted to use the 400,000 from the sale of Bachelor towards the street project to offset that $800,000.
No, I was saying 200 from the fund and 200 in future sales, sale of town property to offset. That's what I was saying. And that's what we talked about, and you said that would be fiscally responsible.
I think I think you're both saying the same thing. I think what we're saying is, and we can pause and we can correct if we need to. So let's go first on the revenue side of the budget. We have that line item that says sale of town-owned / foreclosed property. It's my recommendation that we put $200,000 in that line item of the revenue of the budget. Would be my recommendation. And before you vote on it, the cool part about Excel is it's real time. So that number's in there. The second we switch over to the sheet that I have, wait a minute. I don't have to use the mill rate, the motor vehicle cap one, because we've now dropped below. We took that 11 point, anybody remember it was 11.61? $200,000 now has dropped it to 10.9.
So if we took 200,000 from our account, our savings account, what would happen to the mill rate?
So this one we're gonna do a little bit different, because it's gonna be a transfer into capital. So bear with me.
Actually, can I follow up on Cheryl's question, which is, there is a certain percentage we try not to go below in the savings account for our platinum status. In addition to the 200 that we know is potentially available from the bachelor school sale, is there additional money that we could take from, and we've done this I think we did it 2 years ago or last year, I can't remember which, but we have transferred money from the savings account to the general fund in years where we have budgets that have been very difficult. So in addition to the 200, is there more that would keep us still below that percentage or above that percentage that we want to stay at?
Going to answer that in many different parts, because I think it's important to show you all where we've come and so you have a more informed decision. So if you look at the proposed budget right now, we're suggesting 1.6. You know what? This is an old presentation. Tom's shaking his head because we added. So we're suggesting, Tom, was it 821 was the roads?
Yes, for the 7 that were added, 821.
Okay.
Plus 55,000.
Oh, plus 55 for the
Police accountability.
Police accountability.
Right.
So we're proposing right now $2,480,333 in capitals. The only thing that we've really talked about was that we were going to fund the 821 and the 55. This was on Monday, and it was an assumption that we were going to fund it with tax levy, mill rate taxes to pay for that, right? Town manager was proposing $875 be pulled out of our savings account to help offset, at the time, $1.6 million in capital purchases. We haven't talked about it, but I guess what I'm saying is we're still suggesting, subject to what's about to discuss, that to fund the, don't you love when the phone shuts off? To fund the $2.5 million, I'm rounding, in capitals. I think what you all are suggesting is we take $875 and go to $1,075,000.
And how, I know it's 16 point something percent we have to stay.
Well, it's gonna be at 18%.
18%?
Yeah.
And how close are we? Which?
Tom, do you have it right off the top of your head?
I do not.
You got the audit, pull the audit, because that's gonna, it's online. We're not, quickly, but let's get the exact answer. We're not gonna be near it with $200,000. We're
good.
We're good. I think we're gonna be good, but we're talking money, we're talking credit rating, all that. Let's get the audit pulled
While
up
he's
real
looking
quick.
that up, if you're taking 200 out, is the balance of 400 already been put in there from the sale?
No, because, yes, it has, because the check came to us and we walked it to the bank and we put it in. Because that happened this year, that is not being accounted for because the audit starts after the fiscal year ends. What's in there right now, when Tom pulls up that audit report, it was the books as of June 30th, 2024. 2025, excuse me. I think, check page 21. That's sad that I know where it's gonna be in the audit book, but check page 21. Usually I'm good with that, but there's been so many numbers swirling in my head lately, so, sorry. But I'd rather be right than guess on this one. But while Tom's looking that up, I think what a fun exercise potentially would be is I'm gonna, for illustration purposes only, because when you inject more money into the revenue side, I'm gonna change that 200 to 400 just to show you what it does, okay? And then if there's agreement, we can walk down the paths of different things. So that now brings it down to under 3 mils, 10.23%. Slowly coming down.
Now, how much, so I know that we put in the roads, I know that, which may or may not stay there. If we were to take that out, how much in capital expenditure is there? Are we, like, how much?
You had 26 hard projects that we were gonna get done.
Yeah, so,
And those are funded before we did the 800 and the 400.
yeah, correct. So, to Selectman Bishop's question, 1.6 million You look at, the exact number was $1,604,333 without the roads of 821.
Oh, I see, 7.
So 729,333 was being levied by taxes. $875,000 was being taken out of the savings account.
So we're at 10.23 increase right now.
And what we've done quickly is we've basically injected $400,000 of revenue into the budget.
And just to recap, 200 of it is general fund from next fiscal year, and 200 of it is from savings. No, I'm sorry, it's all from savings.
Nope.
No.
Nope.
I was on the right track.
One's from, 200's from savings, 200's from future sales of town-owned
Right,
property.
which we're putting into the general fund.
Well, yeah, so anytime we send out a tax bill, somebody comes in with a check, that money goes in the general fund.
Now,
Right.
what about the tax sales? Those delinquent taxes, I think we had, how much was that was is outstanding that we're gonna go to tax sales this year, this upcoming fiscal year?
Well, those might not even make it into next fiscal year,
I'm
right?
just trying to get the figures right.
Our goal is to get the tax sales sometime in the fall. Then you have the 6-month redemption.
So that might be the
I-
following year.
Yeah, I mean, listen, we're engaging, obviously, Attorney Cohen right now. Let's say worst case scenario, you do the sale in November. Then you have December, January, February, March, April, May. Either they've
Close.
paid it, or the attorney has released, the sale, the proceeds of it to us. So that would hit.
So how much was that total amount?
The
that
total
we're
amount-
seeking to try to recoup through the tax sales, or by just prodding people to pay their taxes?
Maybe,
Taxes.
again, I'll follow up on your question. Your experience in having done that before, you know what's outstanding. What would you think we might collect in the upcoming fiscal year?
That was my follow-up question. Would you go right ahead?
Well, the good news
We're
is.
working it out here, Cheryl.
The good news is everything that goes to tax sale,
Yeah.
we would collect, because I would be a little,
Not
maybe
necessarily.
something may not sell, right? So
Well,
I make
as
them.
we discussed, someone may just pay enough to get them under the $5,000
Oh, there's that too, yeah.
threshold.
Yep.
So, I would look at it in that kind of way, but, but what was the total?
You've asked me a question, I forgot the number, and I'm gonna go look for it right now, but I'm gonna unplug real quick. Why does $1.2 million, like in my head or
It was a
something?
significant amount, if I
but-
remember.
Again,
So my.
because this is real, I don't wanna guess on
Okay, so
numbers.
that's fine. So my thought process on that is to take a small percentage of what we anticipate getting for the next fiscal year. So maybe 10 or 20% of that, and apply it to this budget.
So going back to the principle of what you all just said, I think that may be a way of funding roads, because that's creating a hole.
Again,
Yeah.
not looking to go back into that 800,000.
Go try and fund that
and
800,000.
As we've discussed, the
Got it.
priorities in this town are education
Yep.
and roads.
Okay.
Okay, and so if we can put things in the road, that $800,000 road that it's not creating a hole, and that's what I'm trying to talk about, and that gets us down and down and down, and still satisfies the priorities of our town citizenry. We can follow up on this on Monday.
Good news is I got the sheet pulled up.
Okay,
Pays to be organized.
Just trying to be
It's
creative.
$810,000. 810,206.
okay, so, and 20% of that then would be, what, 150, 200, like.
200.
200.
Yeah.
So now we put 200, which is a reasonable amount to anticipate that we will get, and not, put 200 in, from that into the capital expense, again, the roads. Now we've got 600,000 of that 884, or whatever it was, dollar road
821.
line item covered. How does that change the numbers?
By that logic, couldn't we also anticipate income from the speed cameras if we're conservative?
I wouldn't touch, yeah, it's kind of,
Well, I think
That's-
we can talk about that,
Yeah.
because there's gonna be something.
I mean, something, you know.
All right, so, man, you guys came ready to
We're
do
trying to
work
be
tonight.
creative. We're trying to be
Yeah,
creative
I like
here.
it. So, just for example purposes only, right? Right now, we have property tax past due. This is a line item that's always been in our budget. You can see that, 247. I'm just going to, for demonstration purposes only, change that to 550.
Okay.
Just so,
From what number?
from 350. I'm just trying to illustrate the
yep.
200,000. That's all I want to do for you guys right now.
Well, before you do, how did you come up with that 350?
We looked at the historical values of where we've been ending.
Okay.
A little bit conservative, you can look
Without
at.
the tax sale?
Without a tax, yeah, well, and you can, you can't see it, okay, good. We put a tax sale could reduce this amount, but if you're at, $250,000 or $200,000,
Yeah, just trying to be
we're not playing too
conservative.
much because we think we probably may do more in the tax sale, so, but to reiterate, we were at 350 in that. I just put an additional $200,000 into that under the revenue side, going back into the mill rate. You've now brought it down to 9.55%. So you've gotten you've gotten $600,000.
And that's with fully funding the education budget as is, and adding in those number of roads, extra money for road repair, correct?
That is correct.
And meanwhile, inflation rate is what?
3-4% maybe?
I think it's up to 4 now.
Yeah.
But, it's creeping towards 5 is what I remember from the news last week. But it's, so costs, how much, our health insurance has gone up how much?
We got a little bit of advantage on our health insurance. Our health insurance,
Went down?
it only went up 35,000.
Okay.
So
And our utilities went up?
every one of those line items went up. Yes.
Okay. Other insurance that we have went up? Vehicle insurance, other insurance?
We switched our insurance last year after we had a budget, which was our workers' comp insurance. So in the budget, we had a higher number. So in this budget, we brought in the lower number. So although workers' comp went up, it went up on the lower number that we didn't account for last year,
Okay.
if that
And
makes sense.
are
But
we
our
self-
lab, our buildings, it did go up. I will tell you that our buildings ones did go up.
At least 10, 15%?
I think it was 10%. Excuse me, I think it was 10%.
What about liability insurance, or are we self-insured on that?
We're not self-insured, that was what I was,
Oh,
with the
that's what
line,
you're
that's where I was
building,
going to
okay.
10%, yep.
Okay, so,
Now let's talk speed cameras.
Yeah.
and then we have 3, but we also went up with our employee-related expenses.
Oh, contractual
Because
increases
contractual-
went up. I mean, you guys see the line items. You saw all of them, there was very little reduction. We just tried to, combine where we could. We picked up savings, obviously on the insurance, we picked up savings on the IT services. So we picked up savings along the way to help, mitigate the increases in the other line
And
items.
so you would expect an increase in the town budget and the mill rate because of inflation and those type of increases, correct? By
Next
just
to nearly
maintain-
impossible to
By
be at
just
zero.
maintaining the status quo,
Yeah.
not adding anything, you're
Yeah.
still gonna get a significant increase, correct?
Correct.
Okay, now, yeah, speed cameras, let's look at that.
So as you know, speed cameras were approved, and the days are starting to roll together. I think it was end of last week. We should have them up and running within 90 days. That 90 days also includes the 30-day only warnings can be issued. We are at the state's mercy because we are putting them on state roads. We do need to pull the right-of-way permit. Sometimes the state of Connecticut moves very quickly. Sometimes they do not. But we'll pressure any which way we can. This is approved by the state of Connecticut, so I think they're gonna be a little bit more cooperative in working with us to get that permit pulled, so the site stream can come out and put the cameras up. But I truly believe those cameras will be up very, and running very early in the 27 fiscal year. Meaning, July or August.
And just to be very clear, because there were some bizarre posts on Facebook today about the speed.
I'm trying to stay off Facebook.
About the speed cameras, about how this is, that our increase for our budget is because we're buying those speed cameras. We're not paying any money for the speed cameras.
Not $1 of taxpayer money went towards speed cameras.
I don't-
All your friends.
I don't think you guys are giving yourselves enough credit. We are one of very few towns that actually went out to an RFP process. We vetted, and I know we have two newer select people, but the former board, we vetted 7 or 8 different companies, all pitched different proposals. I believe it was this board that decided to go with SiteStream because it was 0 out of pocket, 0 yearly costs. Here's the whole math.
And they do the collection.
They do the collection, 55% goes to them, 45 goes to us. They don't get paid unless we get paid.
And even bigger than that, no future obligation with SiteStream that they could come looking for us for the money afterwards.
That is correct. Oh, yeah,
That was the
100%
big thing
correct.
for me.
Yes.
So very conservatively, what would you use for a number from that?
So all I have is what other towns? You have the high of Middletown, which made 600,000 in 30 days, and then you have the little town of Marlboro that made 15,000. You want to go real conservative? I don't know if that's a good sign or a bad sign.
Because we can't look at Middletown. They
Yeah.
have a
No,
lot
you
more
can't look at that.
traffic.
More
We don't have
traffic,
that.
agreed. 200,000 in the first year?
210?
And, Of the
That
town
puts you at your
share,
810.
the town share or the total collected?
Oh, no, town share, meaning that's
Okay.
what's gonna be deposited into like our general
So
fund.
now if we put that in, we are covering the roads that we put in on Monday. Almost 100%.
Well, we could make the speed cameras 210,000 and
We
as
could.
Bill
How
pointed
would
out,
that-
we hit the number.
But it wasn't it 821? Sorry.
I'm sorry, it would have to be 221.
All right.
Something like that.
Was it 821 or
It was 821.
It was 821. I actually wrote that one down, so.
Now here's a line item that nobody before has ever talked about because speed cameras didn't exist. So I'm gonna, just for illustration purposes only.
You know, miscellaneous fund?
Or do we have a traffic fine account?
Tom, any suggestions where to just for illustrate? You know what? Parking fines.
There we go.
There we go. I mean, we got a whole whopping $1,150 in there, so
I didn't know you did parking fines.
we account for every dollar we can. $221 is the number,
221 would be the number.
so I'm going to change this number to 222150. Going back to the mill rate, you're now at 2.57, 8.80%.
Is that motor vehicle cap?
Oh, yeah, we're not, so I would click to this sheet, and I'm not even bothering looking at that sheet because we don't need to look at that sheet because the formulas on here just work because at 31.74, we're below the motor vehicle cap. So that would be the mill rate, 31.74 with everything that was done Monday and tonight.
So, just to recap, we've tapped potential sale of town-owned properties for next year.
And it lists the amount so we all are in agreement, right? So you get 200,000 there.
Right. We took 400,000 out of the savings account. 200,000?
200.
Okay, sorry, 200,000 out of the savings account.
Increased, because you took more, so you increased
Increase
from,
what we were taking
Yeah.
by 200,000. We have tax sales of 200,000. And we have speed cameras of 221,000. And today, at that number, with doing the roads, no other adjustments to the budget, we would be at an 8.8% tax increase and a mill rate of 31.74.
that is correct.
Now, these roads, are we looking to have those done right away, or could we save some towards the second half of the year in case we're not getting the funds in that we need? for that line item, we don't actually get the funding.
It's definitely a Jim Rollins question, but I would, we did that with NRAS, which was a $400,000 solar project that we ended up, that check's literally coming in June, but good story and good ending to the story. We could instruct Jim, or I can instruct Jim, release $400,000, get that stuff paved as soon as we have a budget. The remaining $421,000, you're gonna have to wait until the spring. Get it bid, get it ready, get it going. We could do that, yeah. It's definitely a right conservative way to do it, because if we projected wildly wrong, we just tell Jim, don't pave those roads. We don't have the money.
And that's my biggest fear, is everything you guys are saying is proposed, might come in. I like the actual stuff a little bit better here. Granted, I was actually just on the road this morning, right where the radar comes up. I'm doing 35, the guy goes through the light, he's doing 45, because I saw his speed limit, his speed. So again, it's all proposed, and that's what makes me a little nervous, because I'd like to be a little bit more conservative. And if we were gonna pave any roads, I wouldn't pave any of the roads that's on that list, because some of those roads should just be a dirt road, because there's only like 1 or 2 houses on it. Because I got a phone call after the last meeting from somebody that used to work here and said, there's like 1 house on Winchester Road, which is, you know, almost out nowhere, like the road that's in between these buildings. There's nothing there. So that should just be a dirt road. I think that's just a waste of resources, which could go to another road that really needs it. Because I've been on some of the roads, Danbury Quarter Road is horrible. So that's my thinking. I'm a little leery
Danbury
of
Quarter Road's gonna be
projecting.
more than, these were the only mill and pavers, that's how they got that
I
list.
understand, but
Right.
I'm just a little worried that we're just projecting what could possibly come in. Could you just remind me and everyone what Bachelor actually sold for?
$300,000.
$300,000.
Have they received the funding yet?
They have not received their funding yet. 'Cause
So
when-
Paul,
I thought there was a deadline on that funding.
Not that I'm aware of. You know, whether they get their funding or not, I mean, we had a contract with them
Right.
to sell the property. They own it, they've met their obligation to the town in terms of they had to get us a check, you know, by October 30th. The only pending item that we have with them is as we were going through electric bills, we realized that we were still paying the electricity for Bachelor. Went back to the agreement, realized that they should have been paying the electricity, and we sent them a $18,000 invoice. They said, we don't have the money right now, but when we get our funding, we'll pay you. I said, okay.
We charge it of interest?
I'm being nice now. No.
I would be nice.
so Paul, now let's take these numbers, just so we can see what it does, and take the 821 road repair out.
Well, we have to to avoid the fiscal cliff, we need to use those funds for one-time expenses.
Not necessarily, because the revenues from town-owned properties, we believe that's a real number. The tax sales, we think, is a real number, and the speed cameras. And it's not unprecedented to take a few $100,000 out of the savings account in a difficult year like we're in.
I agree.
And stay way above our 18%.
But you,
And there's $729,000 of additional new tax revenue funded capitals that we could cover, so.
just one small correction. It's already being proposed that we take $875,000 out of the
Right,
savings
that's
account.
Okay.
already part of it.
So you're gonna bring that up
By 200,000.
by 200,000,
Right.
correct?
So take the road project out. Since the roads are not roads that seem to get a lot of fanfare, people are excited about, and they're out in the middle of
That's-
nowhere.
Right.
Tom, where did you bury the road projects?
Next.
Oh, sorry,
Yep.
got it.
So you got view summary
Yep.
at the bottom center, yep. Just above your.
Yep, I got it.
They're right there, yep.
Are you keeping an eye on him, Tom?
No.
Try,
Okay.
it's hard to see.
So we start with the 10, I wanna make sure I delete all the right ones.
You
400,000,
can just
right?
zero out those values, yep, in a tan column.
Yeah.
That should all feed.
Oops. That now brings it down to 1.75, 6.01%. I know that we're doing demonstrations. I just caution the board a little bit, and I think we can get there. Speed camera money, it's unique in what we can spend it on, police and our roadway infrastructure. I think I can make a good argument that the $400,000 that, if we don't go with the 821, this is only for discussion purposes, if we don't go with the 821, the 400,000 we have in the budget for road repair, I can make a pretty good argument that the speed camera money is justified in what we do with that $400,000 line item. I don't believe we're settling on a budget tonight. I think we're gonna do that Monday. I'm glad I have a weekend to just come back on Monday, but I just didn't want any surprises if I come in and
Yeah,
say,
I just
"Oh."
wanted to play with that a little,
Yep.
not making
Sure,
any motion at
sure.
this point,
Yep,
to see what other sources of revenue. I mean, we could give up our stipend, even though it's in the charter, we could waive it, and that's $7,000.
Charter won't let you, we've actually tried.
Yeah, I think they
Can't
tried,
waive it?
no, they tried it a couple of years ago.
You can
Bring it to the-
certainly, you can certainly write a check back
That's
to Park and
true.
Recreations or Friends of Main
After
Street
tax.
or.
you actually cannot do that unless the department has their own account, like a fund account. So if you write a check to the town of Winchester, it goes in our general fund. You cannot dictate where it goes. So if anyone is really wealthy and wants to leave an inheritance, you can't, please do it, but know that, I don't want you coming after us, from the other side saying, I wanted it to go here. I can't, I'm prevented by law from doing
We
it.
can look at removing that stipend with the Charter Review Commission, I'll bring it up.
I think you were on it, yeah.
I didn't even know it was a stipend.
So everybody out there on Facebook who's upset about our $83 a month, we literally have to take it.
I'm only getting 70.
What are you
must have
getting? I'm
different
not
Well,
tax-
actually, there
tax
was
bracket,
a post that said we were
Tax
getting
bracket?
considerably more than we actually
Oh,
do.
that's right.
It's got depends.
I'm
So
losing
just for
money.
clarity, the selectmen
I
get
do the same with you.
$1,000 a year,
That's correct.
and the mayor gets a little extra for going to all of his ribbon cuttings, and
Yeah.
he gets $1,500 a year.
And we all would be glad to give it back.
And taxes are taken out.
Yeah.
I do it in other ways.
Right,
but-
and we pay tax on it.
You do.
We
absolutely.
want to give it up, but we can't.
All right.
You guys spent some time on Facebook, I see. I try
Well,
and
there's
get
no
off as quick as I
newspaper,
can.
So how can you get the
Well,
word out?
yeah, no, I
And the
know,
news out,
I
and
know.
that's the biggest
And
problem.
this is a particularly hot time on
Yeah.
Facebook.
Yes.
The problem is a very small
So sorry,
percentage of the
sorry for leaving all the
population.
education people while we figured this out, but I think it's important base
So
for
now we're at-
what we're gonna do now.
Theoretically, having walked through all this, we're at a 6% increase and a 1.75 to the mill rate.
And all you've done, in essence, is you've 2, 4, 6. You've injected $821,000 in quote-unquote new revenue. You've taken out $821,000 of expenses, which were those 5 or 6 roads, and you did everything else we did on Monday. It's in essence the recap of literally the last 45 minutes. So.
Thank you for entertaining that.
Do you want me to reset everything back? Remember, no motions, nothing's definite. You
Let's
all
leave
just-
it where it's at
you
for
wanna-
now, because I think this is a work in progress that, I'm comfortable with. I think most everybody here this looks okay so far.
I'm assuming you screenshotted the old numbers already
Well,
anyway, right?
It's all in there.
No, so what I was
Control C.
explaining to Tom earlier is I have the muck around copy over here.
Tom has his
He
own.
has the master over there. I thought I knew where we were going tonight, right? So let me muck things up, and then when we start making motions, we'll go over to Tom's, and that's the master one, because I thought it's important to walk through every possible scenario to
Sure.
show you what it looks like. And then as motions are made, we'll do it in the master document. So that's all this was. With that, I don't want to take the mayor's job, but maybe I will a little bit. Dr. Luby, you ready?
While she's getting ready, I'm gonna run out for a second.
Okay. Anybody need a quick 2 minutes or
Make a motion for a 2-minute
no?
break.
2 minutes?
We'll
Yeah, let's
recess for
take a
2
break.
minutes.
Oh, she said so.
Okay, 2-minute recess.
All in favor?
I don't think we need to, motion.
Yeah.
Good, thank you for your presentation.
Mics are off. You guys.
We are back from recess at 7:50. Madam Superintendent.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to bring a little life to the numbers on the page of the Board of Education budget. We shared a presentation a couple weeks ago, I suppose, back at Pearson School, and it had all the things. It had our goals, it had all the emotional appeal, it had all the things. In respect to your time tonight, I'm going to sort of zip it right down and really just go to numbers, because I think that's obviously what you need to be grappling with, is whether there is any room in this budget to take further cuts. So I'm going to be sort of direct in that way, but at any point, if you want me to dig in deeper on detail or zoom back out to why it matters, ask the question, please. I welcome all of your questions. So just to paint a little context, our process begins way back in October when we start building. By the time I had a budget that I presented to the Board of Education, I had already said no to countless requests for staff and things that we need. The budget that I proposed to the Board of Education reflected $115,000 of spending reductions. We went through, and I'm going to show you where in the budget, anything that's within my purview, we sliced, and I'm going to show you that. Technology lines, supply lines, like nothing went up that's in my control. And there were lots of things that never got into the budget that we wanted. The budget that you're looking at that's in your book tonight has no added positions. I know that in the larger town budget, there was some discussion when I was here during Paul's presentation. There were some departments that had additions and modest growth in ways. There is nothing in our budget. There is less in our budget for the coming year than is in our budget today. There's also no capital, no repair. There's no anything like that in the Board of Ed budget. So the Board of Ed, when they reviewed the budget that I presented, cut $500,000 out of the budget that I proposed in anticipation of the fact that a large increase would be undesirable. That $500,000 took into account everything new that I had proposed. There was about $370,000 for 5 full-time positions. I've labeled them special education. They were things like a BCBA, paraeducators, special education teacher, which we know we need, first of all, and we also know that if we add those positions, we will limit future outplacements for students because we'll be better able to meet their needs. And, you know, it's hard to budget for what you won't have to spend as a result, but when you see the magnitude of special education outplacement, you'll understand why spending a little to save a lot makes a lot of sense. We also had other things in there, lunch monitors, part-time custodian. Altogether, that was $377,000, I think. So to get all the way to the $500,000 cut, I started going backwards from where we sit today. And we are pulling out a grade 6 teacher. Since the history of dawn of time, I believe, Winchester Public Schools has had 4 teachers at every grade level. We have somewhere around 75 to 80 kids in every grade level with extraordinary consistency. You have a couple of different ways of seeing that in your budget book. There's a table on page 7 that shows you the predictions, and page 8 shows you the history, but we're very standard for that. So we have already anticipated that we will take out a 6th grade teacher for next year, bringing the class sizes up into the upper 20s. Actually, we're starting at 24. 1 new student, we're into the old age range. And we will need that position the following year because the grade coming behind them actually has 5 sections at the grade level. That's where your COVID bubble happened a little bit. People held kids out, so ordinarily we're 4 at every grade, but next year's 5th grade will have 5 sections. So that 6th grade teacher is going to have to come back. So just also by way of setting the table, I'll remind everyone that we have to come with an 8% ask this year. If we had been doing 2-3% every single year, we wouldn't be at 8%. But where inflation or the cost of living is up 50%, we're up half of that over the same period of time. So we are playing catch up, and it's not necessary to assume that if we do 6% one year, 7% another year, that it will be 6 and 7% every year. At some point, you reach the place where you have the supports you need in the schools and you're only moving up at the cost of living. But we are filling some pretty vast holes as grant dollars evaporate. So you see that left-hand column shows you all the years of zero. And you don't have to do the math to recognize the impact of that in our schools and what happens with the value of a dollar. We survived that during that time because we had receivership money and we had COVID money that followed it. But just like you've all just been talking about creating budget holes, we've been masking the needs of the schools through the good grace of grant funds. So in the absence of those, we are suddenly left with an enormous cliff and we're trying to just survive. This is a summary of all the numbers, just to show you where we are. This is a, I would call this like a location budget. We have two groups of out-of-district students. There are out-of-district special education students meeting through a planning and placement team meeting. The family, in conjunction with the school district, has said, you don't have an appropriate program. We need to send this child somewhere else. And that means we're paying tuition and we're paying transportation. And that is a whole lot of money. The out-of-district choice, the far right column, is a significantly smaller amount of money, and that is largely magnet school and UP7's agri-science program. We pay tuition to that in the neighborhood of $4,000 a student. And then the district-wide, Hinsdale and Pearson, obviously, is the pre-K 6 program. And you can see that the increase for the pre-K 6 program is $440,000. Our health insurance alone is up 400. We'll get to that in a second, but that is the amount of just our health insurance. So in other words, we're eating the cost of the health insurance increase and going backwards from there. Yep. So here's what I want to show you. This is the cover page to the budget. In your book, it's page 23, if you want to follow along. What I've highlighted are the lines that I can influence, other than personnel. And I'm going to share this. We're not going to go through every line in the budget unless you wish to, and by all means, we can go all the way to the pennies and all the way to Band-Aids for the nurses' supplies, or we can stay up a level. But the ones I've highlighted here in yellow, we're going to just take a look at those for a second. But what I want you to notice is all the yellow ones are the ones that are in parentheses, meaning they're going backwards. Where we had the ability to mitigate the rising costs, we took it. So you'll see wages is up 1%. We've cut positions, we've hired less expensive people. We are up literally 1% in wages, which, given that we have contractual raises, means we're actually less than that. If everyone had 2 and 3% raises, you would expect that number to be 2 and 3%. But we have mitigated that as much as possible. That 420 number is basically the amount of the health insurance, which again is the entire amount of our increase. In the bottom half here, we're going to take a quick look at the yellow ones of these. But property services is the Chromebook lease. Transportation is, that is our in-district transportation, 51X. That's the buses to get to and from school for us, pre-K, all the way up through Gilbert. That also includes the special education transportation. That's all kinds of transportation. The special ed out-of-district tuition, we really have no ability to influence. The state is well aware of just how prohibitive it is and looks for ways to help, but there's not much to be done there. And of course, the Gilbert School tuition. So the only things I have sway over are in yellow, and they all went backwards. So the 300 series is the first yellow line, and that's professional technical services. You'll see that line on the over-under is down $24,000. Anywhere we could cut, we did cut. The legal dollar amount is up because that's what it costs to use the lawyer. It's, the not much to be done about that. We did add for the first time $5,000 for professional development. It was really more nominal to say to teachers, we value you and we want to spend money on supporting you. If you cut me $5,000, I will respectfully, happily take that out. But that's the size of what I can control. The medical advisor, not an option. $45,000 for outside evaluations is for students who need special education evaluations, psychiatric exams. $13,000 for an auditor, that's state required. That's, Paul talked about the town audit, that's our piece of it. Audiology is, again, a required service. Technology services, way down. And the last one, the substitute and temporary staffing, that's substitute nurses. In the 500 series, this is the second one of the yellow lines where we have sway. It's down $39,000. Choice placement, some of that is actually because some kids were categorized in funny ways. It's not really down that much. Adult ed tuition, we don't actually influence, we don't provide that, we're state required to, so we pay the money to an advance. We get a grant for $25,000, so we pay half and the state, and they take the grant money and they provide, you're required to provide adult ed, and we're so little that it doesn't make sense. And, you know, they put out the booklet with all the classes and our people in our community can attend those, but we don't have an option about that. Field experiences are field trips for the kids. Again, if you said to me, Julie, you've convinced us we're only gonna cut, $30,000, I would be loath to go to that 16, but if it were a small enough number, that's something I can look at. I mean, we don't have to take the kids on field trips, but we should. So supplies, the instructional supplies is largely things like math workbooks, the reading workbooks. Our science curriculum is very hands-on, so it's straws and marshmallows and paper clips and all the things to do sink and float and, connect the wires, but that's instructional supplies. Instructional software licenses, you can see we trimmed. Nurse supplies is up a little bit, negligibly, $1,000. The food service subsidy is what we have to pay to make the food services run at a zero. We can't run it at a deficit. Tech supplies is mice, keyboards, and administrative supplies is the walkie-talkies, cumulative folders. And again, that's down. Equipment and software licenses, way down. We shaved, we went through every single program that we pay for, got rid of anything that we could live without. So, the biggest thing there is the administrative software and licenses. Those are things like PowerSchool, our student information system, which we're required to use. It communicates to the state of Connecticut, sends all of our enrollment data. But again, we got rid of anything we could. Dues and fees, we have $11,000 for things like professional organizations, Chamber of Commerce. We pay $1,000 to the guy who tells us whether or not we can open school on a snow day. Theoretically, we could quit that, just wait and copy someone else, do whatever Region 7 does, but we would be literally the only school district in the state that doesn't hire this guy. Smart man, right? $1,000 from 169 school districts.
Just to tell you it's snowing.
Just to tell you it's snowing and it'd
And
be risky to
cancel
open
school.
school, I know.
Then he also hires all the public works directors too. We pay for it too, the towns do.
You sure? I don't think we do.
John, right?
Yeah, I don't think Winchester does, because
A lot of towns pay.
I
I didn't even know that position existed, to be honest with you. And I'm like, where does one apply? It's not a close call.
Yeah, $1,000, 160 towns.
No, our guy, who's our town guy?
You're doing something wrong.
Not
Oh,
Phil.
Jim?
Phil Becerra?
Yeah, I share it with Phil Becerra. He's on the, I just added him to our distribution list. Sorry, John. So the town doesn't have to pay because we go as one. So coming into the school, so a savvy superintendent says, okay, this is a big number, nobody's gonna be very happy. What can I get rid of? So last year, I was on a superintendent's call when everybody was struggling, and someone said, "Huh, we're gonna have to stop doing transportation to the out-of-town magnets." I called Nancy, I'm like, "We're not," she's like, "We don't." Okay, there goes that. We're getting rid of library aids. Oh, please, we don't have that. Like, we have, all those years of zeros, we have shaved. Just in the last 2 years, or to the budget you're getting today, eliminated a classroom teacher, a speech and language pathologist, a speech and language assistant, special ed para, academic interventionist, kindergarten assistant, behavior tech. Our EL teacher went from full-time to .8. We removed the full-time executive assistant that worked up at Gilbert School doing special education, which has put a lot of workload on the remaining people. There used to be 2 people that worked partial day in the schools, so that when people come into the school, there's a person there to greet them at all times. Now, there's only 1 secretary left in each school, so if she goes to lunch, the principal sits at her desk. That'll get harder if we have only 1 principal. So we are down to 1 secretary in each school, 1 secretary for special education, and 1 secretary for all of central office. So all of those positions are gone. We don't do, we literally don't do anything we're not required to do by law. So a few of the things, what I was hoping you would see by the page with the yellow lines is that, I guess my point of all that is, any cuts to the Board of Ed budget is people. I mean, if you add up everything, I'm just gonna hop back to that for 1 second and show you. If you add up everything in the yellow, it's about $550,000. $25,500,000 is Gilbert, out-of-district special ed, transportation, and personnel. And the only one of those I can influence is personnel. So that $550,000, there's like, you know, I could get $5,000, $10,000 out of it for sure, but past that, it's people. I've been heard to say if I had to cut, say, $30,000 or something, I would not cut a human being. I would find it. As soon as you get to about 50,000, we are tipping over, and the only way to get that kind of money is a person. And in fact, we got a memo yesterday that the president has released his fiscal year 27 budget, and we are down about $30,000 in federal grants. So this budget is now 30,000 short because we use every grant dollar to pay for staff. So we're already in a $30,000 hole. So a couple of things to have in your thoughts when we start talking about reductions and staff. Right now we have in classes roughly 20 kids in a class. It varies a little bit in different grades, but on average it's probably about 20 students in a class with 4 teachers. If I go to 3 teachers, then you're taking 1 class, 7 kids, and putting it on the others. Now you're in the high 20s. If you go above 18 in pre-K and kindergarten, if you go above 20 in 1 and 2, and if you go above 24 in grades 3 through 6, the teacher's contract has an overage fee, if you will. So if I have 4 teachers with classes of 21, and then I go down to 3 classes, like I would have in my 4th grade, those class sizes will go up to actually 21 plus, I did bad math there, actually up to 28. And then those extra kids cost $124 each. So I just eliminated my lowest paid teacher, because that's how education works. You get rid of the last guy and the young new teacher. And now I'm paying someone who's a veteran at the top end of the scale, $124 for every child over. So if you go from 4 sections to 3 sections, there is some savings. But if you, like in one of the scenarios I'm going to show you, if I cut 1 teacher at grades 2, 3, 4, and 5, I'm only saving the amount of 3 teachers because of the penalties I'm paying to do that. So when you get into, you know, that just, it's like a Mobius strip. At some point, it starts to actually cost you more instead of less. The other thing that I didn't take into account right away and was reminded I have to add back in, for every position that we eliminate, if people don't find other work, they will collect unemployment. It varies extraordinarily based on how long they worked for you, where else they worked, what their salary was. There's a lot of variables, but loosely, we just priced out a few people to get an example. And it looks to be about a third of what we're paying them. So if I eliminate 3 people, I actually have to eliminate a fourth to cover the unemployment of the other 3. So every 3 people becomes 4 people.
Can I stop you for a second?
Absolutely.
That stipend, is that a state mandated thing, or is that something that the Board of Ed gave to the teachers in their contracts?
It is in our teacher's contract.
That's what I thought.
Not entirely uncommon. So some districts don't actually have a vehicle, they just have a hard stop, like you can't go over. So this district had a plan for what would happen if you did go over.
Okay.
Otherwise, we'd have to hire a whole new teacher if we had a hard stop. It's gonna be one or the other.
Some districts, if you don't have a mechanism like that, if you get one more student, you have to open another section, and the union will hold you to that. So arguably, like right now, I think I have one second grade class, I think, that is one student over. So there's a teacher who's getting 1/20th each month that child is in class. Right now, our kindergartens next year, we have 79 students registered, so we're starting at 3 sections of 20 and 1 of 19. So the limit there is 18, so there's another unbudgeted shortfall because we're already 7 students over the 4 teachers that we own in the current budget. The other thing that when I was really, Paul and I had talked and I said, what do you think I should bring? What do you think they're gonna wanna talk about? And he said, well, you may wanna come prepared with what it would look like if you sustain a cut of this, this, and this. So I've been giving a lot of thought to where I would go if I had to. And one of the things that's sticky is that we have a lot of folks who are paid, like I said, well, I wouldn't want to, but I could give up the instructional coaches, except they're paid for in the Alliance grant. And the Alliance grant isn't gonna pay for a 4th grade teacher. So I can cut them, but it doesn't actually help the budget situation. Our reading teachers are paid for with Title I money. I can cut them, but it's not, we pay like $4,000 of their salary in the appropriated budget, and we're paying them in grants. So the positions that aren't like your classroom teachers are actually all living in those federal and state grants already for the most part. So that's a little tricky. People will say, well, why would you cut a classroom teacher and not cut the coach? Well, I said, cutting the coach didn't save any money.
Do the coaches get benefits, healthcare, and all that from us, though?
Yes,
Okay, so there is an expense, particularly healthcare.
although we pay that in the grant too.
Oh, it's paid for, so it's paid for by the grant.
For the most part, yeah, we use every grant dollar to cover as much of every person as we can who we've written into there. So it does often cover their benefits. The savings would be, 5,000 or less on a person, which at that point it's penny wise and pound foolish. And then the last piece that I would really have to go through all the different contracts and think through, for example, in the administrator's contract, if I cut the assistant principals, they can take teaching positions and keep their salaries. So we wouldn't save their salary, we would save the least expensive teacher salary. So the more, and one of my assistant principals is supplemented, I think about 40 or 50,000 of her salary comes out of the grant as well. So I just say to you by way of saying, if you're hearing this and saying, well, why this and not that, there are just these weird pressure points of, it doesn't save you money to cut some positions. So with that said, if I had to cut $500,000 out of this budget, it would be completely human beings, because as you saw, there's nowhere else to go. In case the screen can't be seen on. So the kindergarten classrooms, which we're starting at 20 kids in a class, would have only the 1 teacher, there'd be no assistants in there. We'd have to give up the safety officers. We also already eliminated, we have Tom Dillon, who's our part-time director. He works 1 day a week for us. We already cut that, so there would be nobody engaged with safety other than me and 1 principal. We've put a lot of time into finding a principal. We had over 40 applicants and great candidates. They're supposed to be coming back next week for performance tasks, but if we didn't hire one, then the one remaining principal would go between the two schools. Across the district, we don't have counselors, we have social workers as our model, so we have 2 at Hinsdale, 2 at Pearson, and 1 at Gilbert. They manage a lot of family and student stuff. We would pull 1 out and have people cross buildings. We currently have in the budget 6 interventionists, 3 at Hinsdale, 3 at Pearson. 4 of the 6 are paid all but like $1,000 by the Title I or the Alliance. Alliance. There are 2 of them that are in the appropriated budget. So take 1 out of Hinsdale, 1 out of Pearson. We currently have 3 preschool teachers. 2 of them teach a full day class of 16 students, and 1 of them has 2 half-day classes. We would give up 1 section of that and be able to serve 32 less students because we wouldn't continue the half-day classes. And we could give up the 2 reading teachers, but the savings on that again is very minimal because they're in grants largely. And that's at $500,000.
So the loss of 2 interventionists leading to more referrals for special ed, that means that the out-of-district costs could really skyrocket, right? If they had to refer more.
So when kids are falling behind, intervention is the first line of support. And
Hey, Tom. No, oh, sorry, sorry, apologize. I want to make sure they heard Kevin. Sorry, didn't see that.
intervention is a regular education piece. One of the things that I've been wrestling with a little is you can't really not have any interventionists because the definition of identification for special education is the lack of response to intervention. So it will get really tricky if we don't have any interventionists to be able to say, well, we tried to intervene, but nothing worked. Because there will be no one to support the classroom teacher. It will just be, the reading teachers would be gone, the interventionists. So ultimately, you would have students needing more support in the classroom from the classroom teacher with no hands on deck to support. Somewhere, there's gonna be the kids who are now managing in the classroom with special education support. Eventually, yeah, they're gonna fall off the other end because the less humans we have in the schools, the less able we are to maintain kids.
And that will also impact the regular education students as well, because they're not gonna have the attention of the teacher, because the time is being consumed by the kids that need more assistance, correct?
Yes, at the risk of saying what I think is obvious, there is nothing about this that is good education or that I feel good about or that I would be proud to say I was a superintendent of. If we get rid of all those positions, we are doing irreparable harm. And unfortunately, at $500,000, I have nowhere else to go. And I guess that's the main thing I wanted to make sure that if you don't believe that in your heart of hearts, take me through every page of this and ask me what else we could give up instead. Show me, find it, help me, because at $500,000, we will not look like the same school system, and that's 500. At the risk of being ridiculous, I'll show you what $1 million looks like. It's everything you saw before, and then it's also 4 more classroom teachers. So now your class sizes are 26, 7, and 8 in all the little grades, going all the way down to 2nd grade. No instructional coaches, no assistant principals. So now you have 1 principal and no assistant principals across 2 buildings. 1 nurse to go between the 2 schools. The law requires us to have a nurse for the district. Best I can determine on some quick loose research, it's not illegal to have 1 nurse go back and forth. We do have a student in each building with medical needs where typically if we don't have the nurse on site, the parent will keep the child home. So that's really less than ideal, but it's not against the law. We would have to give up some special education teachers, a special ed administrator, and another social worker, so 2 of the 5. That should get me about $2 million. Somewhere around here, you can also eliminate the superintendent position, because I won't be here. 1.5 is all of those things I already said, the kindergarten assistants, the safety officers, the principal, the assistant principals, 2 social workers, 2 interventionists, 2 pre-K teachers now, so we have just 16 seats available, which we have to maintain at least a 50% ratio of regular education, special education, so we're pushing it there. We may get out of compliance with that. Reading teachers are gone. 5 classroom teachers. We're in grade 1, we're up into the high 20s now. Instructional coaches are gone, the nurse, the special ed. Nancy didn't see this yet, a custodian in each building, which is ludicrous since we have only 2 to start with during the evenings to clean the whole buildings, 1.5 in one building and 2 in the other. And we would have to get rid of library, art, music, which are the specials. The teachers are, by contract, need to have 45 minutes a day to do their planning for their teaching. The way they get that is when the kids go to art, library, and music. So if we didn't have specials, the kids wouldn't have library, art, and music, and we would stop the school day 45 minutes shorter so that the teacher's prep period was when the kids went home.
And that would impact Gilbert because we run 1 bus run, not 2, correct?
So we have 2 tiers of buses, but if our day, right now, they start before us and end before us. So unless they want to go later and extend their day, yes, it would impact them because we would need the buses sort of right around when they're doing their afternoon run. So pre-K 12, everybody would go home 45 minutes earlier probably. So 1.5 million, I mean, like I'm saying it with a straight face, but I mean, this is catastrophic level.
And this is after the cuts that you took when your board asked for $500,000 cut.
Right. We took the 500,000. I think some of my board members felt that that was, they were doing, the people said things like, well, we're gonna do the work here so that they don't have to.
They being the Board of Ed.
They
Board of
being you guys,
Selectmen,
right?
okay.
The Board of Ed did that in anticipation of knowing there would be an expectation that something would be cut. So we took out everything new and started going backwards before it got here. And Paul said 2 million was on the table, so I tried. One of the things that I didn't mention is they went, like, if you look at the number of people, you're at 10% of the staff with $500,000. We only have about 150 people total who work in the district. Many of those paid through grants. So that's 10% of the people. That's 15 to 20% of the people. This is 25. This is 1 in 4 people who work here are gone, and this is a third of the staff to get to $2 million.
Do you have any reserve funds that could be applied to reduce your ask to the taxpayers?
Great question. So, like every school district, at the end of the year, if you haven't spent your entire appropriated budget, you either give it back to the town or you can respectfully request that it go into your reserve account. So we have about $40,000 in that because we spend every penny of the appropriated budget, but we have about $48,000, I think, in there. And there is, if we make it to the end of the year intact, about $400,000 left over of a undesignated COVID grant, I'm going to say. That is essentially our safety net. Nancy and I started having the conversation, that would be the ultimate budget hole if we apply it. But what we were saying was, if we had to cut $400,000, for example, so either we do all of these atrocious and unthinkable things, or we spend the $400,000 and have 0 safety net. That means if one child moves in with a $150,000 tuition bill, we have nowhere to go. Like, we have no cushion whatsoever, but at least it puts off the decimation 1 year. The following year, we would have a $400,000 hole, but who knows what could happen in a year.
So if you had a teacher, had a student move into the district that you didn't budget for with special ed, and you would be able to take the money from your savings, is that what you're saying? If that student stays, you wouldn't have the funds then, and if something else happens, another student comes in, you wouldn't have the money.
Yeah, we talked about, like, as I was listening, and you all talked about the town and however much you have in savings and whatever percent. We have $400,000, so I don't know what that is as a percent or what would be advisable. I don't, this is the only large business I run, But I imagine in the real world, there's a percent of, you know, they say you should always have X amount months of like your household income in savings, you know, God forbid something happens. I don't know what that threshold is. but I
You're at
should-
2%, sorry.
We're at 2% is what we
2%.
have.
That would be
Okay, so we
2%.
have a 2% cushion, which it would be insane to use up, but I would probably, Nancy and I will have to look each other in the eye, but I would use that before I would decimate the schools.
And 40, and the 44,000 or whatever in your, that's the non-lapsing fund, or
Yeah,
is it
that's,
called?
I don't know what I called it, but yeah.
And that's where the
not
town
lapsing.
gives you permission to hold that excess.
Right.
And you said
About-
every district does that.
So under state statute, every district can say to the town, hey, we've got this amount left over, we'd like to put it. And a lot of districts fund their capitals that way, like whatever you don't spend. Most districts' budget is a little less tight than ours, and most districts, you know, if we're getting down to $40,000 of leftover money on a $26 million budget, we're budgeting really close, like, we're living right at our edge. I think a lot of districts have a lot more fudge room.
So you're not, you know, putting things into your budget, trying to make sure you have leftover funds to go into the non-lapsing fund.
That would be lovely, but no. My first year here, we had 45,000, 48,000, and the year before that, they had, I think, 1,600 left at the end of the year.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor, I have a family emergency. Can we take a recess and let me see what the situation is?
We're in recess at 8:26.
Generally this week, pretty much, so. Sorry, folks.
Okay.
We're back from recess at 8:36 PM. Continue.
So I was asking you a question, we took the break. So you talked about this law statute that provides for, that you have to return the funds to the, unused funds to the school, correct? Unless the school, to the town, unless the town gives you permission.
Yep.
You said that applies to every district. Yes or no? Does it apply to?
The statute is,
Yeah, does
the
it?
appropriated budget is yours to keep.
Okay. Does it apply to Gilbert, as, since they're part of your appropriated budget, and they're considered a district in and of themselves?
I can't, since I'm not a lawyer, I won't tell you if it does apply to them. I can tell you that they've not returned funds. It's a little different because they charge us tuition,
Okay. Right.
and we're not a municipality, so,
There's another vendor.
so no, we
Yes,
don't
yeah.
get money back at the end, whether or not it's expended, whatever they've charged us is theirs to keep.
Okay.
And I'll assume that that's the way the law is.
Thank you.
Now, those big areas of transportation, like how does it look like as far as, you know, I know the bus system and also the out-of-district transportation, like how does that look? How do you find, you know, is there an RFP that goes out, or like how does that work as far as negotiating with those vendors, finding those vendors? 'Cause those are vendors, right?
Yes.
So are you going to be out of district transportation?
Yeah, let's start with
or
that.
all? So let me get to, where are we, transportation. Gotta get to the file. Yeah, I know. It's just not going as fast as I'd like. Okay, so in the 500s, our in-district transportation, district-wide regular transportation, the 512R line goes out to bid. Our contract ended, we went to bid this year. There was only one bidder on the contract. We negotiated against the one and only bid. I'm not sure if you're supposed to be able to do that, but we did. We didn't really save money, but we restructured it. It was gonna be like 8% in the first year, 7%, 6%, 5% increase each year, and we negotiated to smooth it out a bit to have less of a hit this year. So that's how the district-wide transportation works. The out-of-district transportation is, we have one person whose job it is to do all things money related to special education, and she contacts the companies that exist. First, if a student is added, let's say you've moved in and you're gonna need to go to Oak Hill. So if we already have a student at Oak Hill and it's safe from you and the existing student to go, then we just add you onto an existing run. If we don't have an existing run, then we have a list of all of the companies that offer special education transportation, and we will reach out and see if any of them even have the capacity to do it. More often than not, you're not taking a low bidder, you're at the mercy of trying to find someone in a sea of nobody can do it. But we obviously try to find a person and try to find the least expensive person.
I think in our book on page 57, you break down the differing vendors and the
Yes.
number of students, correct?
57 exactly, shows you we have roughly 26 or 27 students, 20, 21, 2, 3, 4, 5,
So in one situation, you have one student whose transportation is $130,000.
Yep.
So we're paying $1.3 million for 26 students' transportation. So let me ask you a question. Out of the box here, have you ever offered the parents some money?
Troy, I love that question. So we have one parent who currently does it for mileage reimbursement at the IRS rate.
Well,
which-
let's give them,
So-
let's go higher than that.
So I drafted something right before break, a letter, a fact sheet, and a contract, and I've asked our special ed director to send it to the special ed attorney to make sure, A, it's legal, but B, the proposal will be to say to parents, hey, we'll give you $1,000 a month to transport your child. It's gonna save us, you know, we get some reimbursement, which is shown against the tuition, but it actually is.
Even $2,000 a month will save us.
Right.
I mean, have you entertained that? Have you,
So, like I said, I drafted it right before break. As soon as we have a lawyer tell us, A, it's legal, and B, what you've written is of sound quality, then we will send that letter to the 26 parents. Realistically, I don't know how many of them have the capacity.
they could hire somebody to do it for $2,000 a
Well,
month.
that's what I'm thinking, grandma's gonna go, right? For $1,000 to help with your household bills, so we're thinking exactly the same way. I won't know if anyone takes us up on that for a few weeks, because.
Well, I would be pushing that one, even if you had to do the numbers and make them worthwhile. Because $1.3 million is a lot of money to spread out between 26 parents.
Yep.
Some of, well, I don't know if it's 26 parents, we don't know, but what do, you know, some of these students require very specialized transportation, that's why the expenses, can you explain what type of specialized transportation?
Typically, the transportation will have restraints, it may be wheelchair accessible. Some students can only go one student on a van, they are not considered safe to be with another child. Oftentimes, you're paying to have the driver, the specialized equipment, and a second adult on the van because the child can't be alone. So there's a lot of cost with it. My assumption is if it's your child, you probably own a vehicle that you can transport your child in.
They would have to, right?
You
Or
would
else a
think.
kid stays home.
Right. So I'm thinking that they might, you know, whether or not a parent has the ability to do that consistently. It would have to be the kind of thing, like you can't get a bus contract on and off. So people would have to commit to doing it and to give us notice if they can no longer do it. We would always have to be accepting them back if they said we can't do this anymore. So
Well, if you could shave $1 million off that number, that'll save a lot of teachers' jobs.
we're not getting $1 million off that number.
You don't know that.
Realistically, if one student, so typically, I'm gonna say on average, maybe it's 60,000 student. If we're paying 160,000, figure their tuition plus their transportation, we're getting back 2/3 of the 60 from the state. So it's only, the transportation is really only costing us around 20,000. So the savings per student is probably gonna be in the neighborhood of 10,000 to 20,000, not hundreds of thousands. So if 25 parents, if 5 of them took us up on it, it might get me $100,000, but it's not getting us $1 million. Because special education costs for out-of-district students do get reimbursed. Let me show you where the tuition page is. Nancy. 560. So these are the same students on this page. And see how the tuition is like 2.7 million, plus 3.4 million, minus 1.3 million. So this, for out-of-district students, if you're spending more than 4.5 times your per pupil, so call our per pupil 25 just for easy math. So 4 times that is 100. So call it like 112,000, call it 110. So anything above 110,000, we get back 2/3 of. So just for ease of bookkeeping, you're seeing all of that shown on the tuition page, but it's actually the combination of tuition and transportation. Like some of that transportation cost is defrayed by this 1.3 million, but rather than split it half on one page, half on the other, it's all on one.
Well, $100,000 to start.
Well, the 1.3 million comes off the total cost. So what's the total cost of these 27 students, tuition and transportation?
3 million something.
So it's 1.3 million was the transportation number, plus the 2 million here is 3.3 million after state reimbursement.
So after, if that 1.3 is, the 3.3 is after that 1.3 has come off already?
After the 1.3
We got the
was
two,
up
it's
here.
after
Yeah.
1.3 was off, yeah.
Right.
Now, we're required to provide the transportation,
Yep.
correct? So basically, we've asked the parents, would you mind? And if they
Right,
change
would
their
have to
mind,
Sign a memorandum with us that says we're willing to do this,
and if they
we're not
change,
being pressured.
if they change their mind and you don't have that fund, your savings account, to make up that difference, or a new student comes in, you still have that problem.
100%, it would be risky. My feeling is desperate times call for desperate measures. We offer it. If 3 people take us up on it, 6 people take us up on it, great. If it busts and 3 months into it, they're like, yeah, we can't do this, then we're in trouble and we'll never do that again.
Because you can't force them to continue at sign a contract, you're gonna have to
Right.
send you.
Oh, no, we have to provide the
Yeah.
transportation. They could enter an agreement with us and back out, for sure. They
So
would have that
entering into
capability.
something like that could put you, and then your budget accordingly could put you in a very dangerous fiscal cliff
Right, so
within
I'm
the same
not-
budget year.
Which is why I'm not making a reduction on it based on an idea, but over the next, hopefully, we get back from break on Monday, it goes from my special ed director to her special ed attorney, hopefully we have it out to parents by Wednesday, and see if anybody bites.
But even if they bite, they can change their mind at
They
any
can.
point, so you'd still have to keep this in your budget, and then if it's not used, it would come back to the town under that statute, correct?
That's one way we could do it. Or I might say to teacher and just leave it with us at night. Depends how much of a cowboy I'm feeling like.
And if it's not your child, there's special licensures that's required in order to transport people with disabilities, correct?
Yes.
For the right family, that could actually be a move that's helpful for them, because, I mean, $1,000 a month to some families could really, like, that could make a huge difference.
Absolutely.
And, also it's more time with the parent or with the grandparent rather than with strangers. So for the right family, it could be a move that is both beneficial and better for the child, as well as, the financial
So
advantage.
These are, like Paul said, the way he's looking at every lever to pull, I mean, we're coming with things we've never done before, probably, I don't know if any districts are doing, but, we are looking under every rock and trying anything we can.
So the median income for the town of Winchester for a family is $66,519 to $68,890,000, or $890,000. We're at a 12.8% poverty rate. So this would definitely help some families.
Yeah.
That's pretty low income for this town, and
Yes,
that,
it's a win-win.
to me,
for
it's,
sure.
this is gonna be tough.
But you don't know whether that parent is at home, whether they have other children that are coming off the bus, a different
Right.
bus, whether they're gonna have the resources, whether grandma is healthy enough to manage a child that has difficulty, and if they have a good friend that can come with them and monitor the child in the car. There's just way so many variables. You can't budget that way.
It's not gonna work for all 27 students. If it works, like I said, if I can get 5 students and save $100,000, I'd be thrilled. But it's not gonna be the budget. It's 100,000. If the lawyer says we can do it.
Trying to save teachers, Julie.
Me too, Troy, right there with you.
Well, we're talking about, every number we talk about is a human life and a child's life we're talking about. So, what I like about this proposal is that, for the right family, it could be a better move for the child and for their education. If there's cost savings involved, fantastic, but I love the idea of giving more options to families. It could work really well for some families. So.
Other comments?
So I appreciate all the work that the school staff has done in all these presentations, but unfortunately for us as a board, not to sound mean, but you guys are just a line item. And I kind of look at what's coming in and what's going out. And I haven't heard anything about the ECS money, what's happening. I know that the Republicans in the legislature are pushing, I know that Jay is, so they're pushing to increase this by $1,192,612. So that brings the total to the ECS to $9,217,569. And I'm also hearing that the majority Democrats in the legislature are gonna shoot this down. So there is, the money could possibly be there, and it could possibly come. It's just sad that that's what's happening. I've been frustrated with some of this, and I've shown it a couple times. We also have to remember this budget, and I'll repeat myself again, only passed by 8 votes last time, which again is showing that maybe some support's there, but some of it's possibly not there. I don't know, I'm torn, because I know what the need is, I know it's there, but I also know what we can afford. I've taken a little bit different approach this year. I'm looking more on the revenue side. That's why I don't want fiscal cliffs. I don't want to presume that we're gonna get $200,000 from our cameras. I hope we don't get any money from those, but from what I saw today, I can definitely, I got a feeling there's gonna be some, but if we could predict the future, we'd all have a lot better lives, so that's just kind of where I'm at. And your other thing that came up, and I brought this up once before, was the historical appropriations that you had pulled out, and how they went. And I just don't know how they did this. From 2013, almost right up to 2021, the schools were flat at $19,958,149. So that must have been when it was in receivership.
That was 15 to 17.
15 to
Commissioners
17.
Network money,
So-
and then COVID money.
Right. So, and I remember the last superintendent saying there's gonna be a fiscal cliff, there's gonna be a hole. And here it comes, and it's not just on the school side we've been seeing lately, it's also been on the town side. We had police contracts, we had ambulance contracts, we had all sorts of other stuff. And also don't forget that you are having capital projects done because your roof was approved, but the town is also paying for it, so it's not coming out of your capital budget, it's actually gonna be coming out of our capital budget, so.
Right, we have no capital budget.
It's just very frustrating to see what's really happening across this whole state. And we're not the only school district that's in this position. I've heard some of the things that you even said. If we don't get this money, we're gonna close the door. Maybe we just close the door. Maybe we build a school. Maybe we do something different, out of the box. Like Selectman Lemire says, so.
I mean, it's not, we're in a very unique situation in this district because we can only control a portion of our education budget. I looked at the minutes, for the Gilbert, Corp. And when they did the budget, there was no ask to the head of schools there to propose cuts or what would happen, the scenarios. And we have 4 members of the WPS Board of Ed that are also on the 9-member Gilbert Board. Not one of those members posed a question to Mr. Susi about whether or not if he could discount $10,000, $100,000, $200,000, nothing.
Yeah, but is it up to the Gilbert board to do it? Or is it up because they're a vendor of our Board of Education, so is that up to the superintendent?
It's not.
To ask,
It's not up to
the question?
It's not up to the superintendent. It's up to the board negotiates. There's no negotiation
No,
with Gilbert.
I understand, which is also
haven't even
part of
been-
my frustration that they're not even here to be part of this
Right.
conversation.
And as far-
Because this is all one town here, we're not.
Exactly.
It's not the Board of Education or the superintendent against the
Exactly.
Board of Selectmen, kind of what this kind of feels like it is here. It's like us against them, and
No,
that's
and
that feeling I'm starting to get here.
And
So-
the question is that, so, in all the years of negotiations with Gilbert to try to get a contract, even under the current board, Gilbert's never, ever been willing to have tuition as part of the contract. Never, even this recent negotiations. I know not when I was trying to negotiate for a couple of years, were they ever. The only time tuition was ever part of a contract is when the receiver was here and did a 2-year contract, said, this is how much we're gonna pay you, we're not paying you a penny more, you take it or we go elsewhere. That's the only time they agreed to it. And, that's not, the best way to negotiate, it's not the best way to keep, a good, healthy relationship, and I'm not suggesting that. But I was stunned when I went back and looked at the Gilbert meeting regarding the budget, that there was not one question about, well, this is an $800 and something thousand increase we're asking for. Is there any way we can reduce this? Not one question. The questions were all about, how do we sell this?
Because the Gilbert Board's not responsible for negotiating their tuition down. They're responsible for doing what's fiscally best for Gilbert. To Bill's point, it is Julie's responsibility to play nice with Gilbert and negotiate a vendor, which is what they are, negotiate to the best of her ability. Yes, they have this crazy law which gives them the authority to say, sorry, no, but it's not up to the Gilbert board to look for reductions. That's not their business. It is up to Julie to look for that
Well,
number.
when they talk about how, in their budget meeting, when they approved this budget, which was an under an hour meeting, according to the minutes, they did say, well, this is what we need to run our school, and this is showing that we're good partners with the town of Winchester. How is that being good partners? And that's the problem.
I think it's
They
not
have
being good
2
partners
point-
not being here for this
Well,
meeting. I would
that
agree
is
with you there.
huge. They have $2.3 million, and I have the bank statement I can pass around in an account, in an investment fund. We know about 1 million plus came from a COVID-related grant they got, which was to replace, was because they kept people employed. It was for people under the IRS guidelines. That was for entities that lost revenue because of COVID. They didn't lose any revenue because of COVID, because we kept paying that bill.
Well, they lost all their students that came from
They lost
outside of us.
They lost those
They
students.
lost
So they did
some
lose that
They-
revenue.
They lost not 1.3 million,
No, but they
and
lost.
then the other million, where does
Got
that
it.
come from? We don't know that. We don't have anyone here to ask that question.
We can't go to any of our other vendors and say, open your books, please. She can't call the bus
I know
company
that.
and say, open your books. Oh my gosh, you made $10 million
Absolutely.
last year. We're gonna negotiate our contract down. We can't tell Gilbert how they wanna run their business.
Right.
What we can do, and
Yeah.
what is the superintendent's responsibility, is to talk to Gilbert and see if she can negotiate something. And they have, in the past, reduced their ask. Now, last year, they asked for $200,000, right? As opposed to 1.5, I think, was the original number that Winston Public was looking for. So we obviously had a lot more questions for Winston Public at 1.5 million than we did with Gilbert at 200,000. But we can't expect Gilbert's board to say, let's see if we can save Winstead money. That's not their job. Their job is to do what they think is fiscally best for that organization. We have to ask. And that ask hasn't been, or have you had conversations with them?
During the budget process, we explored what the tuition reduction would be if we kept our current 6th graders and didn't send them as 7th graders, figuring if it's $24,000 a kid, we could save money that way.
No, I know you proposed that at one of the Board of Ed meetings, but have you spoken
both said
to
that.
the headmaster and
Yes.
said, you're asking for 817,000, this is a very difficult budget year, what can we do to work together to, you know, I'll bring some savings, what savings are you willing to bring? Because they've done that in the past.
So we directly asked them could we keep a grade level, and that amount of savings was about $300,000, not the 1.8 million that you would get by multiplying. So that was
Right.
not a successful overture.
Beyond that, what have we done?
The feeling is we're waiting, my understanding is they're waiting for there to be a cut, and then there would be discussion of whether they're sharing it. But I
Yeah,
can't
so-
speak for them.
Yeah, I mean, again, they have come to the table. I've sat in this room with them 2 years ago, prior to Mr. Susi being there, and in the room, they made deals with us right here to bring the cost down, and that we were able to share with Winston Public.
Could you go back to the historical appropriation slide that you had up there? It's one of the first. Yeah, that one. Can you make it bigger? So, I mean, they're right there. There's our problem. I mean, that's 9% between 2010 and 2026. Winchester Public Schools has increased 9%. Gilbert School has increased 55%. There's the problem with the system. I mean, how can WPS continue to absorb? I understand that we, can ask, but this is the inequality of the system. I mean, I want every child to have a great education. So, but if this was a regular school district, wouldn't it be about equal? Wouldn't it be about 30-30, 25-25? I mean, that shows everything right there over the last 16 years.
And it's not just a line item, these are kids.
Yeah.
These are community members who work in our schools. These are our kids, this is their future. We can't just treat it like it's a line item. We have to look at it in the importance of investing. We've got, I know you all got these, because there was a number of emails that came in from people about, about this budget. And there's not one email that we got saying, don't spend the money for education. Not one. In fact, one of them says, well, I want roads and education, but if you have to choose, let's choose education. And, these are from, there was a lot of the ones like, can you ask, Gilbert this question or that question? We can't ask Gilbert any of these questions on behalf of these taxpayers because they, they're not here, and.
One of those emails, the one that was on your desk today, is an answer to one of the questions.
Yes, no,
to
I
ask-
saw,
to
I
ask Gilbert.
saw, yes,
But you're correct, the other questions that they've
there's
asked, we
many
haven't been able
questions
to
that
ask.
aren't asked. There's questions about whether there's any endowment for Gilbert. I know the answer to that is no, because you can look at their budget. There's very little funds that go from the trust into the corp. Very little, because I asked for that information, and it's under $20,000 in the last few years that funds special little projects for things. They do a scholarship program, those are wonderful. That's not changing our ask. That's not changing what we need, what we were asking, they're asking us to have the taxpayers pay. But we have a number of people, like the schools, are concerned. They're concerned about getting lawsuits. If we're not providing the special education needs in the classroom, because we're getting rid of all these people to do cuts, we're gonna get sued. And that's gonna be really expensive because their parents are gonna get their kids out of our system, into out of district, and it's gonna cost a lot of more money. You can't decimate a school like this. I think Dr. Luby's been very clear on what she has the ability to cut and what she doesn't have the ability to cut. Now they can use the $400,000 they have in their savings, and then if something happens, something happens. And that's not the type of fiscal cliff that we want to have.
No, we don't.
We don't.
And what about?
But also, the percentage we're looking for the taxpayers, not all these taxpayers have children. I'm not saying they shouldn't pay. I technically don't have children right now, but I'm paying, I don't have a problem with that. We can only keep asking them for so much. This is gonna happen again next year. The year after that, they're gonna come and ask, and they're gonna ask after that. A lot of this stuff is all state mandates. The state has put us in this position, and it's not just us. You say we're unique, it's not. There's a ton of schools coming forward this year saying, we just don't have it. We're gonna have to close our doors.
We're unique in that we don't have the ability to examine or reduce the totality of our budget. We don't get to go into our high school system and say, okay, do we really need to have this club being financed or this teacher being financed when there's only 4 students in the class?
Well, we have the same thing with the WVS. We don't have the ability to go in and say, you're gonna cut a teacher. That's up to her.
Well,
that's not even up to us. That's why I said, unfortunately, like I said, I'm frustrated. It's just a line item. We don't have the ability to cut any more than the overall ask. That's all.
So
That's it.
the question I have, why should the taxpayers have to pay an extra mill almost for an increase to Gilbert when they have an account that is $2.3 million? It's been sitting there for a while, and they're at Northwest Community Bank. It's just there. Why can't some of that? I mean, I know they took $250,000 towards that. I guess the question is, who asks? Who negotiates with Gilbert? I mean, Town Manager Harrington, have you had the opportunity?
They're a vendor. It's like going to a bus company and
It's
saying.
not his responsibility, he can't do it.
It's
But I
like,
asked.
Time out, I do wanna, I was,
you're gonna throw your 2 cents in? It's
this
like
is the longest I've ever been quiet in this building.
It's like the water and sewer.
agree.
They're also, the water and sewer is a vendor of the town.
But
They charge what they charge.
this board
There
did
is no
direct me
negotiation.
on Monday to not only put the invitation out, but that was also then including the chairwoman as well. I did copy you on the responses. I do try and not have meetings outside of public meetings. So I did get a response on, and I will admit, I went way out of my lane, but I felt I was safe because my own bosses told me to be way out of my lane and ask if there was any reduction that Gilbert could take. The initial email back was exactly how much. I said I didn't get a number, but this is definitely a troubling budget. A larger number would be better than a smaller number. Response back, okay, if you could please provide us an update after tomorrow's meeting, that would be helpful. sorry, Kurt, I know you're here. It goes on to say, or perhaps Kurt could come to a Gilbert meeting.
Kirk, come to Gilbert, you're on the board, aren't you? Gilbert board, so.
That's what I said to my,
Yeah.
I didn't go back and forth on an email,
Yeah, all
but,
those meetings.
that was the response, that I got. So I didn't get a number. I didn't think it was my place to ask the number. You guys didn't give me a number, but that was the response to a question that you had asked me to go ask them.
Would you please put that last slide back up again with the years and the budget and all that for a second? So, first of all, this is a lousy situation, Dr. Luby. Not having control over what Gilbert wants to charge because of state law is a lousy situation. The state having billions in the rainy day fund and not funding ECS since 2013 is a lousy situation. We're stuck with a lousy situation here, and you have a lousy situation. But the problem is, what this board needs to try to do is balance the needs of education, the needs of town, the roads that we never seem to get to, all of that. Well, I shouldn't say that. We are doing roads as part of the bond, but there's a lot of things this town could use. And we have to balance how much people can afford. Now, last year, the total budget went up, to make sure I'm looking at the right line, 6.9%, right?
Yep.
Now, I know that's not all yours. I know yours was
9.2.
9.2% actually went to
9.2,
Winston,
and then
and
3.1
3.1
for
went to
Gilbert.
Gilbert. But let's look at the total package. So 6.9 last year, and the year before that, and that dollar amount was $1,500,000, round numbers. And then the year before that was a 4% increase, 4.5% increase for $944,000. And the year before that was 4%. I mean, we can't bring these types of increases every year to the town. What does a school lunch cost in the school system? No, but it's $3. And 60% of our families are on free lunch prior to the change, but 60% were on free lunch. That means they can't afford $3 a day.
I think one of the things that I would point out is if you got about 16 years worth, and the total budget's gone up 23%. So to the point that's been made a few times that we can't keep going up 5, 6 years. If we had gone up a modest 1.5, 2 each year.
You are
You're absolutely
preaching,
correct.
you are preaching
Yes,
to the
ma'am.
choir.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
and none of us.
Hence my frustration.
Shame on the people who let that happen.
Right, we can't go
Absolutely.
backwards, we gotta go forward.
And I do want to say this, because I feel so badly, Bill, when you say, and you're pointing at this, I want to say to you, I understand that this is an awful situation, and I believe that you understand it's an awful situation on our side. And all I can do as a superintendent is show you the impact of decisions that you make. I'm not in your shoes, I don't get to make those decisions. All I can do is give you the information. If there's a $500,000 cut, this will happen. There's no, you saw, I think compellingly, there's nowhere else to go. I mean, I can mitigate it with some of the 400, most of the 400, but like, that's the impact. And that's my job. I have to advocate for our schools. I have to tell you plain and true the impact. I don't mean to position myself against you. I don't envy you sitting in that chair, as I'm pretty sure you don't envy me sitting in this one.
I've already been losing sleep, so.
I assure you I have as well.
One thing I'd
I'm
like to
32 years old, Bill, look at me.
one thing I'd like to reiterate for everybody watching, everybody here too, is
Ultimately, again, and I said this Monday, this isn't our decision. This is our proposal. We're gonna go to the town and say, this is what we propose. It's the town, it's not us. We're here to make decisions, to guide, to get the information, pick a number that we feel the town, and I can already tell you, the town's gonna be split right down the middle. If you go back to your slide with the historics, it was split down the middle back to we started. It's been split down the middle for 100 years. It's always gonna be split down the middle. I don't wanna pay, I wanna pay more.
And the 8 votes last
8
year
votes.
was not a mandate. That didn't say, oh, good, we can do this again.
And I will tell you, I
It
talked to
wasn't-
some homeowners last year that go, how did that pass by 8 votes? Did you vote? Well, I was busy, but I'll be
Exactly.
voting next year, so,
Exactly.
Last year's 8 votes was parents getting fed up with that slide showing the historical disadvantage. We know that the disadvantage is there. The cut should be equally split across. It was 20, can you go back to it again? There's 23% is the increase for the town. It should be the same for the school district. So why is one side 9%, one side 55%? It's a messed up system, and I understand ECS is messed up. I clawed my way to the top and looked Governor Lamont in his face, in his office, and said, you need to increase ECS for Winchester, and everywhere else, please, too. And here is the problem, and looked him in the eye, and, he said he understands, but, whatever. But
And it was
And then patted you
proposed
on the head and
today.
said, have a nice day.
Here, I'll
look
send
into
you
that.
And
200
it
bucks.
was proposed yesterday in a budget, and they're gonna flat out vote it down.
Correct.
We are.
I understand, it's a
Yeah.
big issue.
But if you wanna solve this problem,
Yeah.
with the 55 and the 9,
Yep,
build a school.
let's do it.
That's the solution to
There
that.
we go, let's go.
Because I can tell you what the state legislatures are not gonna do. They're not gonna say, let's get rid of that requirement that the academies can charge, or the named high schools can charge whatever they want. That law is not going away.
Nope.
Right? And we were all at the Board of Ed meetings, and the people sitting back there that are part of Board of Ed got to listen to me pontificate for 10 minutes about all the things that we should do. And I'd like it to be their legacy to solve this Gilbert problem once and for
Absolutely.
all.
We're all in this
right?
together.
Yeah.
Because it's frustrating. But at the end of the day, we've got all of these families who right now, by some creative accounting we did in the first hour here, and taking those 8 road projects back out, we're still asking them to pay 6% more than they currently do. And that's on top of almost 7.5% last year. And what was the year before that? 5%?
5 or 6, I think.
Yeah. So guess what?
and most of them in that same 3 years have got about 4 to 6% increase in their salaries.
But that's not
I-
because we're adding positions, that's because of things beyond the control of everyone. The health insurance, I mean, even the
Oh,
Gilbert
absolutely.
budget, it's a huge increase for the health insurance, huge increase for ours. That's a lot of money that we don't have control. We don't anticipate that same type of issue next year. I mean, so the comment like, oh, you're gonna
We
come
didn't
back and look.
anticipate it last year either.
Right.
Well,
So
well,
be careful of
no, but
of
if,
thinking
because the
about
way,
that.
Yeah.
what happened with the health insurance is a whole different animal.
Should have been able to anticipate because we were underpaying.
Here's what we're up
Yeah.
against. We're up against what was done during those years when nothing was funded. That was a terrible idea. And when all what I call the funny money was coming in through COVID and all that stuff, we didn't fund, right? We were creating the cliff that we
Yes.
spoke about earlier.
Yep.
Now the cliff is in front of us, okay? The problem is, what I've learned, and this is my 3rd fun-filled budget, what I've learned is you have to have a balance between making the investments in the town. Education's a big investment. And I understand all the arguments for funding education. I would love to give you all of the stuff you asked for in the first $2.5 million. I'd love to give it all to you. And then let's add some more special stuff. That's what I'd like.
Yeah.
But that's an 18% tax increase, and that ain't happening, okay? I don't think we're gonna get 6 through, is the problem. Inflation last year was 2.7%. You can try to make an argument to the electorate that, hey, we're only raising taxes 2.7%, and in a minute I'm gonna ask him to model what that looks like. But we've got a balance between what can the town afford, what are they willing to pay, and how do we keep the best possible education? I'm with you. I want the best possible education.
Yes.
But I also realize that we can't keep having $1 million increases every year in the Board of Ed. It just doesn't work. And we've got to figure out a way to make it affordable.
And the problem is that the WPS can only control an additional certain amount. Your ask is $400,000 extra, right? From what, that's $444,000, something like that. And the rest you can't control. You can go back to Gilbert and say, will you please, pretty please, and see whether they do want to be a fair partner, which would be fabulous. Because they do have the resources, they do have the funds available to help that we don't have, that our taxpayers don't have. And it'd be great if they can do that, and I know that's gonna require a board meeting, and you've gotta do the meeting, there's a lot to do. But I think one thing that we may wanna think about, none of us here know whether the budget passed last year and that the people who voted against it were voting against it because of the increase or because they didn't think it was big enough. Okay, we don't know that. So we can do what some other towns do, and when we put out a budget, the referendum, we can ask why they're voting against it, because it's too high or too low. That, we can ask those questions in the referendum, and I would suggest that we could talk about that on Monday when we frame the referendum, because it would be nice to have that information. Are people going to reject, if they reject the budget, whatever we come up with, are they rejecting it because it's too low and it's not funding education or roads sufficiently, or is it because it's too high and they don't want the increase? That's a question we need to have. We're just making assumptions as we're sitting here because we don't have that historical information.
Tom, could you do me a favor? Could you run minus 500,000, a minus 800,000, and a minus $1 million on the mill rate?
Do you want that off the fresh document here or off the one that?
That's gotta be, Paul's gotta do
One
that.
that Paul has,
Paul's gotta do that.
So from
we're starting out,
from our 6% increase.
yes, 1.75 mils.
You want to go on the screens, or do you want Dr. Luby still on the screens?
No, I think you should put it on the screen.
Yeah, we don't, we're good.
Thank you, Dr.
As I connect, there was a question about adding a question to the ballot. My bigger question is because our charter states that it must be a machine ballot, and we have those new machines. Tom's laughing over there, we need to find out if that is an actual option. Which I'm glad you've given me till Monday to answer that, because I couldn't answer that right now.
I think it has to be kind of simple, no? Like, is it too low or too high, a yes or a no,
Do
right?
you have any feeling on that
Oh,
information?
you can't put questions. You know what? And I saw you before you came in the room, and then I said you were staying, and thank you, Deb.
Thank you.
While you're working on that, I'll just ramble on a little bit. Some of the problems that we have are what we are. We are a distressed municipality. We've been on, I have the list right here, we've been on the distressed municipality list 2010, 2011, 2012, 2013, 2014. We came off in 2015. We were off the list in 2016. We were off the list in 2017. And then we've been back on it since 2018. For those that don't know, a distressed municipality is a town, borough designated annually by the Department of Economic and Community Development that faces high levels of economic, fiscal, and social distress. Criteria include high unemployment, high poverty, aging housing stock, and low or declining rates of job growth, population growth, and per capita income. Selectman Hester said earlier our median income is about $66,000, which is considerably lower than the rest of the surrounding areas, which their median income is $93,551 annually. There are people that are struggling in town, unfortunately. A lot of elderly. They're making decisions to buy food, pay their rent, or buy their medication. And I do worry what charging them $33 extra a month is going to do if we increase their taxes. Because no matter how good or bad our school system is, if you can't afford to live here, you can't pay your taxes, or we can't fund the things we need to fund. Are you all set with those numbers, Paul?
I can't show you all at once because of the way
one
you've
at a
seen,
time.
so we can do one at a time.
One at a time,
Please.
start with
Okay.
500.
Yeah,
Just
so-
to respond briefly to that, that's what got us in this problem. Is not being willing to do the increases that were necessary.
Well, we haven't been able to because people haven't been able to afford it.
I understand that, but that's what got us into the problem. And because we had those extra grants for a while, we were able to improve our education so that our kids, you know, particularly in the lower grades, are doing extremely well. If you saw the presentations, you know, our science is, you know, what, #1 in our area, you know, math and language arts are #2. I mean, that is outrageous improvement, because I remember when I was on the board originally, coming out of receivership, we were doing really poor. And we used all those grants to get the interventions in, to get the supports in, and work on, you know, curriculum to such an extent that we're being incredibly successful. And now if we take all that back, we're gonna go back down the drain, because again, we're not funding. You know, we can't keep trying to maintain flat budgets. It's irresponsible. It's going to impact significantly investment in this town. Some of the letters that we got, you know, the emails we got regarding the budget from citizens talks about that. And that's huge. We want to grow our grand list. That's the best way to reduce our taxes, but we have to be invested in the town. And education, schools are a main driver of investment in a community. So, you know, I totally understand people who, you know, struggle. We have some tax relief programs that we can look at for those particular type of people that are available. But we can't be just saying we can't be raising taxes because of those people, because we can't then grow the grand list. We can't then reduce the burden, and we're going to be just devastating kids for our future.
I'm not saying we should have a flat budget. I'm just saying we need to be careful with any tax increase.
Absolutely.
So we've funded education over the last 2 budgets an additional $2.5 million in the last 2 budgets. $2.5 million went just to education, didn't go to anything else. With this ask, it's $4.5 million over 3 years. Where does it end? That's the question. And $4.5 million, we're asking people who can't buy a $3 lunch to year after year after year take another tax increase. And these are not small increases. 7.5% last year was a large tax increase. 5.5% the year before was a large tax increase. We can't do that again to people. People are struggling. And what I've learned, and again, this is my 3rd budget, what I've learned in this deal is you have to somehow balance what's most needed with what, and making the investment in the town, right? I agree with making investments in the town, and I wish we had more money to do it. But you got to balance the investments and how much more you're going to tax people. And, you know, what did we do? We did 7.5 and 5. I mean, that's a big increase over 2 years. And now you're looking at another 6 on the shaved down budget we've already created. It's still too high.
And it's shaved down.
Okay, Tom, start showing us our numbers.
There's a
Start with the
solution.
5.
There's a solution to all of this, though. We just need to find out from Gilbert what they're willing to cut. Then we will have our cut. They have $2.3 million in a
But how long
capital
does that
account.
last, Kevin? How long does it take? Okay, next year they gotta give us another 5. Next year they
And
gotta
the
give
other
us
thing is
another.
that too.
How long does that
Again,
last?
I said earlier, it's like going to the bus company and say, you guys got $10 million in the bank, you gotta give us a discount.
But this is taxpayer money.
But so is the school, so is the bus company. They don't have to, they are an outside vendor, they are a corporation, they can do what they want. Make no mistake. Just because they have money in the bank doesn't mean they have to give it to us.
That's why we need to
So
find
for
another
us to
option.
do $2 million, I said this before, you need 400 homes paying $5,000 a year in taxes. There's your $2 million. Remember, we are starting to invest and things are starting to happen. Rome wasn't built in a day, but it was built brick by brick, day by day. And I think that's what we've been doing up here.
And,
if we
and,
go
and
backwards.
I agree with your numbers, Billy, but what'd you say, 400 homes?
400
To
homes
come up with
paying
$2 million.
$5,000.
If those 400 homes appear in Winchester, and we magically get 100 more students at $24,000 a student to educate them,
There's 2.4 million.
Okay, Tom.
It's not Tom, it's
Oh,
Paul.
it's you?
I have the HUD.
All right, show me 500.
I just want to set the deck. This is all of the revenue increases that we took, we did subtract out the 821 in those 5 or 6 roads.
Yeah.
So right now in the modifier is a $500,000 reduction. That puts the mill rate at an increase of 1.26, 4.32%.
And that's 500,000, right?
That's at 500, correct.
And that's also, just to, I was zoning there a little bit, you also removed the 821,000 already.
That is correct. Yep.
Hey, now show me 800.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, what was that?
That was 4.32%.
Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna jot these
So
down.
3.43 was the
I'm
mill.
jotting them all down.
It's a 1.26 mill increase, and it's 4.3% tax increase. I got it.
Correct, okay.
That was minus 500. Let's do minus 8.
You're up.
So you're at 3013.
0.96, 3.30%.
Three point,
3.3.
and now the million.
We're at 0.76, 2.62%.
And the mill rate would be 29.
93, Paul.
And you devastate the school system. You set this town backwards significantly, because this is gonna come out, even if Gilbert contributes something, it's not gonna be equal. And so the elementary school kids are gonna lose, and we're gonna end up increasing out-of-district costs for special education, which we're never gonna, it's gonna take years to recover from. It took years to recover from that, you know, once we were in receivership, to really get those kids back.
We're still kind of recovering from receivership is the problem.
We're still,
No, we're recovering from irresponsible budgeting during those years when they did nothing.
Correct.
That's, make no mistake, that's what we're recovering from.
Yep.
because everyone wanted flat budgets.
Yeah.
Right. I think.
Irresponsible budgeting during those years on the Board of Education and this board.
Yes.
Absolutely.
I totally agree, and I think I remember one referendum 6 times.
There,
Everybody
the
remembers?
Board of Education
6 times
tried to go and
referendum.
ask for money, and they were told by the Board of Selectmen to reduce the amount of money. On a number of those years, there was always cuts asked to the Board of Education, and they always took it. And in one year, Gilbert refused to contribute to that cut at all. So we can't guarantee that the Gilbert Corp is going to agree to help out in this situation. And the result is going to be, we're going to end up in litigation, we're going to have outrageous expenses, and we're going to be off the fiscal clip that you've never seen before. And cuts like this are absolutely irresponsible. You saw the presentation that Dr. Luby did, what it's going to involve to make these cuts. Because all she's operating on, all she can control is the budget that she makes. She can't control what Gilbert does or does not do. And their ask is over $840,000. Not the BOE ask for their portion of that budget.
Is there any way we can get an answer from Gilbert before this budget is finalized? Is that
That's up to
impossible?
Dr. Luby.
So it's not really up to me. I think the time frame issue that you're dealing with is, I don't believe you can have an answer to that question unless they meet as a board. I don't know that to be a fact, but I'm assuming to make a decision.
Well, in
they
the
would
past,
like to meet.
in the past, the head of school has made an offer and then brought it to the board. And the head of school is typically fairly persuasive with the board.
Fair.
So I would be reaching out to him
Tomorrow.
wherever he is on vacation and tell him that you're staring down some pretty serious adjustments here and they gotta come to the table. I mean, I can't tell you how to do it, right? Our job is to simply go, here's the money that we have, and it's gotta be figured out.
And I would predict, if we do these type of cuts, the budget's gonna fail, because the parents are gonna come out and vote it down, because their children's welfare and education are at risk.
They do that, it's only gonna go lower.
Really, that's very
But
responsible.
but the homeowners,
Position to
taxpayers
take.
may come out enough and say, they don't even want to decide.
That's why we need to have the question, so we have some guidance as to which way the is going.
I think the question's a great idea, by the way.
There are some towns that actually separate their questions on the ballot. I know Simsbury is one of them.
No, you're talking about the budget, you're talking the education budget
They
separate from the town
separate the
budget.
budget.
So they
Yeah,
both
you don't
have
wanna
to,
do that.
they both
Town
have to
and school,
pass,
right?
to pass. If one passes, one fails, both budgets.
Well, I don't want to, we can't
Their
separate the
charter allows
budget.
it.
Yeah.
We can't
Our
separate the
charter
budget,
does
but we
not.
absolutely can, we can have two questions. Are you supporting this or not supporting this due to the education budget or
Too high or too low?
or the town budget? We can separate those in the questions, absolutely. And that's the guidance we're looking for.
Yes.
We need guidance. Well, I think too high or too low is more of the guidance, what we need. Is it too high? Is it too low? So we know
Well, I think you
which
should
way we're
ask it
going.
for both sides of the budget, though. You should ask it for the town budget and the POE
So
budget.
you have four questions. Is the town budget too high? Is the Board of Ed too high? Is the town budget too low? Is the Board of Ed too low? We can ask all the questions we want, right?
I think you're up to 7.
There we go.
You don't want to pollute it too much because
Yeah.
people won't answer the
I
questions.
agree, but
Too-
we've just
too
asked whether the
confusing.
town
Gotta keep it
budget is
civil.
good or not, you have to break it down. So, that's something I think we should look at formulating those referendum questions if we're looking at it. And, we're gonna discuss more on Monday, I know, not, we're trying to get some information before then and go from there, but.
I think we're all pitted against each other in the same way that much of the town is, but I think we're really kind of all saying the same thing. We're dealing with a system that is flawed, and I'm very happy that the Board of Ed has recently opened up, an inquiry to help guide in solutions, and I'm very happy. We all do seem to be in agreement that the system is flawed and we need to fix it. And, of course this is a tough year, every year is a tough year, and we're going to continue to have these problems until it's fixed, but I think we need to commit to fixing the system, whatever that may be. And all I ask is this year that we don't let 600 children, I'm the only one up here who has a child in this system right now. These are 600 lives, educations. They will grow up and be the residents of our town. They will go out into the world, and do things. We can't, because of our system's flawed and because, we fight at this desk, we can't let 600 children fall through the cracks. And it's not a one-year problem. The things we do now create problems for the next year and the next year and the next year. So we are agreeing because we want a 3% instead of a 5%. We're agreeing to throw 600 children's educations under the bus because of a broken system. We do need to fix the system, but we can't let those children fall through the cracks.
And what's
But unfortunately, that system's not ours, that's the state of Connecticut. We only have so much. The state of Connecticut is kind of holding us hostage too, because they haven't gone up since 2013 on the money. Like I said, it's in the works now, almost $1.2 million.
Children
That
are
would be
children,
great.
we must watch out for them, regardless of what systems
We
we've
should be
got.
watching out for all 11,000 people
We
in
do have
town.
to worry about the kids and take care of the education, but we also have to worry about we have 11,000 residents. I don't know how many households that we have that pay taxes. But we have to, what's that?
About 6,000.
So we have 6,000 households that pay taxes. We have to be concerned about those 6,000 too. I hear you
I
loud and
believe
clear.
they're the same. I believe that the parents and the children live in the town also. That's 3,000
I'm
right
saying,
there.
okay. Well, we don't know those numbers. We just know that we have handed out very large tax increases the last couple of years, and I don't think there's an appetite to hand out another big one again.
Well, we don't know until we ask them.
Well, this is true, but it depends on what we're gonna send them, basically.
Right, but why go for a devastating cut off the bat, and why not try to keep it closer to what the ask is right now and see if the taxpayers are willing to pay that? And we'll have the data as to whether it's because it's too low or too high, a town budget, education budget. Why not put that out there just like that before we try to start, slicing and dicing so much? I'm not saying that we can't have some reductions, we've talked about that, but, it shouldn't be 500,000, million, 800,000. That's absurd. That is irresponsible.
Being responsible for this decision is balancing both sides. It's not just what education needs, it's what the taxpayers can afford. We've been down this road over the last 3 years.
The town is responsible to make the decision. We try to give some guidance, as the Selectmen Proposal said, and we can say, okay, this is what our superintendent is saying she needs to properly educate the children of the school. This is what the head of schools at Gilbert is saying they need in order to properly educate the students at the school. This is what the town is saying we need to run our town and provide what services we can in a responsible way. This is what, and let them make the decision.
And then it's our job also to say, here's how much money there is to spend, and if you're not getting what you want, work with Gilbert and figure it out, because this is how much money you're gonna get. That's what it comes down to.
Gilbert's not always willing to work, and
It is
hopefully
what
they
it is.
will.
We, unfortunately, I wish we could come to, and this is a Board of Ed decision, not ours, but I would like to say today, let's start shopping for the land and put the building up, because this is cuckoo what we go through here,
And
okay?
I'm with you.
For how many years?
And the, unfortunately,
The
the
sad thing about that is that as a because of that, we will lose the history of Gilbert, which I know is dear to a lot of people who went to that school. You know, I wasn't in the town, I didn't go to school there, I don't have that same sort of attachment to my last high school, but people do. But, you know, to change the system, looks like that's the road we're going on, and that's sad.
We can't afford the system the way it works right now,
Right.
and I agree with you. There's a lot of sentimental value to Gilbert, and I'd hate to see that have to happen. But the reality is, and I know that they're commissioning a study, and please God, it doesn't take 5 years to get the study back. Please God, it comes back very quickly. But I think at the end of the day, the three alternatives that they've given the study, you know, I see the first two as probably not even possible. And the third one's the only one that really makes sense. But that's not our decision. Our decision is if they come to us and say, we'd like to build a school, we'll figure out how to pay for it. And make sure the budget works. Because we know probably what a school would cost and how to fund it. What we don't know is how much does it cost to run it. And that's the missing ingredient right now. Once we know that number, this decision, at least for the finance board here, gets a whole lot easier.
Yep.
That was part of the study.
Yeah. But I don't think,
Mr. Harrington's awful quiet.
Any other comments from the
We
board?
got him now.
I do want to caution the board on one thing. We threw out ECS tonight, and this is the problem, and it's in every town. It's happened for over 20 years. ECS gets wired into the town. It's a grant to the town. Your budget, along with 169 other towns' budgets, will be decided. Session gets out on May 6th. You wouldn't have the ability to increase the Board of Ed budget without jumping through a few hoops. So if that budget does have legs and does move and it increases the ECS by $1.2 million, it doesn't go to the Board of Ed. You've appropriated $26 million or whatever the case may be to the Board of Ed. You can't add an additional appropriation unless, and as you're gonna have to go to referendum with it, or as we did with the boiler project, I could make the argument it's an emergency, which then gives you the power. That's just me, but you'd all have to.
can we not fund it, and again, I'm asking, can we not make an adjustment to our budget
Town support for
and go through
education
town
line?
support of education?
Although that's generally non-educational costs.
So repeat the question, I'm trying to
So
follow.
if that, first of all, and I think the chances of that money actually materializing are really small, but in the miracle that it does happen, okay? And we've already passed a budget, could we absorb that $1.2 million into the, because you said it gets wired to us, and then fund schools through the town support for education account?
You'd be changing a line item that was voted on a referendum. It's the same box, whether it's the Board of Education line item or town support for education. I kind of sound like Selectman Hester right now. I truly see the line items. Whether it's that line item or that line item, you gotta jump through all the
What
hoops
is the
and
mechanism for adjusting a budget post-referendum if that happens?
So again, the two ways to do it is referendum, because of the dollar amount. It's above X amount of percentages, and I think it was anything more than $200,000 or $300,000. And or not an and, or as we did with the boiler project, this board declared an emergency. You know, I think it was $580,000. We did not go to a referendum on that because the board felt it was an emergency, which you need heat, so I agreed. The board then took the action and and voted itself to fund the 580 for the boiler. So I just caution on ECS. I got excited, obviously. Then I started playing scenarios out and even more in my head tonight. I'm like, wait, even if we get an increase, but the budget's been decided, how do I get that money in? Oh, I gotta either do this or I gotta do that. So I hope we get to 1.2. Heck, I hope we get 2 million.
Kevin, you've been having discussions with the commissioner, correct? And about changing the ECS formula, because we get less than other towns, because the formula is different for us, because they don't count all, we don't get the full amount, because Gilbert is presumed to have endowment, and it doesn't, so.
Yes,
we
one of the
should supplement it.
One of the downfalls of the endowed academy is that our percentage of for the students at Gilbert is less than the percentage for WPS, and we're also there's other than the DECD ranking where we just jumped from number 11 to number 4 most distressed district. There's another like the PIC ranking. I forget what PIC even stands for, but they give additional money when you reach number 20. We're number 21 most distressed in that district. So I tried to argue, and they go off of the year before, but given the DECD designation comes out sooner, I argued that, I mean, there's no way that we're not going to be above 20 next year. So, I mean, that could affect the number, so there's,
We don't know.
who knows?
I know the
Who knows?
CCM is also pushing to change the ECS, which is the Connecticut Council for Municipalities. The chairman, I think the mayor of Torrington was in there talking about it, and I follow them on Facebook. I see them up there all the time. He's always talking about it. They really need to change that system. The state of Connecticut does. And
Can I make a suggestion too? We all got the thing you sent out to the parents. Why don't you send something out to the parents tonight to call all of their state representatives and push the majority towards voting for the budget that was introduced yesterday that gives us the $1.2 million.
correct.
Yeah, the problem is if you're talking,
That's
we
Jay.
just have Jay. That's our representative. And he's
Listen,
already
you can
pushing.
blow up everybody's phone there.
Well, that's true, you can call
They
their
don't have to be
representative.
yours.
If you're not one of their constituents, they may not listen to you. That's the problem.
Well, you can hit Lamont, Blumenthal, Murphy.
Yep.
They all make a nice salary. Hammer their emails and cell phones.
Blumenthal doesn't have anything to do with the state budget or anything like that.
Do you have any other comments on the budgets tonight?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Whoa, easy there,
Slow
buddy.
your roll, slow your roll.
I just wanted to make one more comment about ECS. I do think that with all of the pushback from every town, I do think that by next year, because it's the biennial, they do a 2-year budget for the state. If they don't change it by next year, I mean, they're crazy. But I think there's a huge amount of effort going on all across the state, and that is one thing that came up in when I was able to meet with the governor and his chief of staff and all of them that it is changing. It may not help us this year, but I mean we have to anticipate that hopefully there's a pretty big chance that next year we may get a sizable amount more.
Short session this year too, is it May something?
There's also a good chance you're gonna get a small increase next year just to throw everybody a bone and appease them. Because we don't
Anything's
have the money. The
possible, but
state's struggling too, they're gonna tell us.
There's 169 towns in Connecticut, and every one of them is lobbying for their school districts to receive an increase in ECS.
So let's talk about what tomorrow morning's website is going to look like. Because right now, which one of these models are you going to put up there next?
Whatever ones you guys tell me to. This is Selectmen.
We have the 6% increase, a 4.3% increase, a 3.3% increase, and a 2.6% increase.
May I offer a suggestion? You've taken no action on anything tonight.
It's different than,
I would
different
not-
than Monday.
Except for the roads.
No, we didn't.
No,
Well,
you
that's-
took no
that's
action.
right.
There
That's
was
right.
You
no
don't have to
this-
change what's up there.
Right.
That's just a recommendation.
Right, okay, that's
We're
fine.
gonna change
But
it.
you guys also.
Yeah, I'd like to float it till the next meeting. I want to
So
digest
change
this.
nothing on the website.
I wouldn't
Yep.
change anything because we
Okay.
didn't vote on it.
Yeah.
If we had voted on something, then
Be
I
a
would
different
say
story.
change it.
Yeah. Sorry, stay quiet too long. I think it's important to note my schedule is FOIable as well, but I'll let this board know. I was supposed to have a meeting with the education commissioner Tuesday. Something came up. That meeting is now scheduled for Monday, her and I. There was an opportunity for me to talk to her. I've taken it. I think the Commissioner of Education, she's heard from, it's like the bishop, she's heard from residents. I think it's important that she hears from the town manager of what this is right now. And you know, I've sat through 3 years of these meetings, and so I'm having a conversation. Can't tell you where it's going. I can tell you, good news, we're meeting again Monday night, so I can update you on Monday night. So I want to let you know about that. Obviously, you know, I'll do whatever we have to do for the town. I said it in the presentation 2 weeks ago. The budget that the town manager proposed budget was the non-injection of money from the state of Connecticut. You know, we've been the same number for so many years. You know, I think Dr. Luby, I think, you know, our side, listen, you hear me talk all the time. I was told Troy I would pick up the carpet to see if I could find 2 more pennies under there, you know? But when you have, you know, inflation, you have mandates, and no additional funding comes in, it creates what I think why we're here till 10 o'clock at night and why we've been meeting so often. But, and before we adjourn, is there anything that the board will need? I think I'm going to keep, if the board's okay with it, the agenda for Monday very light, and just basically turn it. Should we basically
Do budget.
It should be
just
budget
get rid of
only.
all
Budget.
other?
Right.
Tom's like, I need
Have a couple
transfers. They are quick transfers.
That's okay.
The couple
That's okay.
transfers we can handle.
We'll do them at the end.
That's fine.
All right,
Okay.
so one question, so looking at the budget schedule that we put together.
Yep.
We can have special meetings from Tuesday, the 21st, through Thursday, the 23rd, which is Thursday. So the reason I'm bringing this up is, you know, we do have, you know, the chair of the BOE here, who is also on the Gilbert Corp, and we're looking for him, you know, the conversations to have about whether Gilbert can help a little with this dilemma that we're in. It may be appropriate to have another meeting, because we know Holly and Mr. Lucy are not available, not Lucy, this one. Susie are not available on Monday. Maybe we do a meeting on Tuesday or Wednesday, the 22nd, so that we can have a conversation, if necessary, with them, where we can, you know, we can explore as well. I mean, we have to do our due diligence. So I want to just see, maybe we can find out whether there's any availability from, I don't know, if you want to speak to this, if you think there's any reasonable reason to have another meeting to try and talk to Gilbert that kind of way, or you guys have got to go through your process. I mean, we have to make a decision, you know, by the 24th.
Just a quick
Thursday,
correction,
right?
we have to make it by the 23rd, because
Right.
Thursday morning by 10 a.m.,
Yeah.
we have to get everything off to the paper.
Right.
So,
So-
that, we,
Thursday's the 23rd, so the 22nd.
20, I apologize, 22nd. Yeah, we have to have our
Wednesday.
decision done
Wednesday.
by Wednesday night.
Oh, because your budget schedule says we can have meetings.
Then we went back and we called the paper, and
Oh, okay.
ever since, I won't use their name, a new bigger company took over, they have new rules of when deadlines are.
Okay, all right, so Wednesday, the 22nd would be the only other.
Would be the only other.
Last
The last
one.
opportunity.
Which I will not be in town, for whatever that's worth.
So, that's, you know, I just think we need to try to, would you be in town the 21st?
No, I could do the 21st in a remote, but I am leaving Tuesday morning, and I won't be back till late Thursday.
I think this is such a serious issue, and, you know, if we can somehow reduce the ask without decimating our elementary school kids, that would be great.
I guess if the board, if I could put the chairman on spot, when do you think Gilbert could, if they're willing, could make a meeting?
I'll have a discussion with them.
Could you get with me? I can then send information out to the board for informational purposes, and then I can poll the board via email, as long as 50 million questions don't come in, and then I can back off of when a meeting could be.
They're not available to meet anytime this week, I understood, right? Like, we can't meet them tomorrow night or even Friday night, right?
I'm under the understanding that Mr. Susi is away and possibly, I don't know exactly their circumstances.
And they have their own meeting on Monday that's why they can't be here
That
on
was
Monday.
a trust meeting.
Right.
Yeah.
No,
Our
the
next
trust was
scheduled
today.
board meeting is next Monday.
I think, and again, I'm just going on the way it's worked in the past with the board and with the head of school, that the head of school pretty much can give you an idea, I think. I'd be on the phone and let him sell it to the board. That's how they've done it in the past.
You get that Monday.
I mean, we saw $200,000 in one of the budget years come right off the Gilbert budget in this room. He committed to it and went back and sold it to the board. I don't think we have the time to wait to see for the board to meet and all that stuff, because this budget's, we're at the deadline here.
Is there a certain number we're asking of him?
Well, I would go to the board if I was negotiating with them at this point and say, I'm staring down a really ugly cut, $1 million. How much can you participate with?
Yep.
Considering you already took a $500,000 cut on your budget.
I mean, it's their budget too, right? They have to understand that we're writing the check. The check's only gonna be so big, they gotta come to the table. I mean, they don't have to, we'd like them to come to the table. We'd like them to be a good partner.
Yeah, both asks started, between the $800,000, $900,000 increase range. WPS took 500,000. Gilbert has taken none, so that's where we stand.
I don't know if Gilbert was asked to take anything yet, though. Have they been?
I will make a note, just, in fairness, they did use $250,000 of their capital account to reduce, but they do
Right.
have a lot of funds available to them for further
Right.
reductions of the ask to the town, and that would be greatly appreciated.
But I don't know if they've even been asked. Can you comment whether they were asked at all so far?
I thought you said they had asked, but they said after this.
No. You made the suggestion of taking grade
Yeah, you gotta-
7 back. That was the only conversation. Other than that, there's been no ask, correct? Yes or no? What are you saying, Kurt? There has not been an ask. Okay.
Our board motioned and then ultimately didn't choose to ask them to do that.
It's time to make that call.
So Monday night will probably be a late night for us. Is there an appetite to move the meeting up an hour?
Oh, you got time. You have time. Sorry.
Do we have the charter revision is supposed to meet in here?
No.
I mean, that could,
We
Postpone
can commandeer the room.
Yeah, but we're on the charter
oh, you
revision.
can't
They've
come
asked
up here
the town
us.
manager to attend that meeting.
We can be excused, we're just there on advisory role at that point.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing is they could,
Yes, sir, yes, sir.
They've asked me to attend that
Right.
meeting.
That's
I'd be
right.
happy to go there.
maybe what needs to happen is we should ask them to potentially reschedule for the 27th when there is no conflict and,
It's also already been kind of put out there that there's a meeting at 7 on Monday, so people might be wanting to attend.
well, if we started earlier, they'd still get a chance to
Well,
attend. We're not gonna be out
The
here by
biggest
7.
problem with that is that the chair of that commission is in Italy or somewhere this week, so we can reach out to Candy about it, but I don't know how much she's checking her email.
Well, she's on Facebook all the time, send her a messenger.
I'll note, just so the boards should know this, that if you do move that time to 6 p.m., it then does become a special meeting because you've come off of the agreed upon 7 o'clock. You will be limited of what you could do in that meeting. I know we're
But we can
Well, as long as it's already on
adjourn
the
that
agenda.
special meeting and
Oh,
and
that's
start
good.
the US meeting.
And there's always a creative solution. That would work. Yes. Never thought of that.
Doesn't matter to me either way, Todd. Whatever.
It's up to
I'd like to break the record of last year, so.
No,
I don't really want to be here till 3 o'clock in the morning either.
neither do I.
Time's Papa's open for breakfast sandwich, 4?
really?
I'm okay if you guys want to start at 6, call it a special meeting, and then go right into our regular meeting at 7. If not, we'll just start at 7 and let it go from there.
I think I can make 6 work.
Right?
I can make
6 is
6
better.
work.
Then I can leave earlier.
Cheryl, can you make,
I can make 6 work on my
okay.
day. I
6
can't
p-
do anything this Thursday or Friday though.
Special meeting, 6 PM, Monday.
6 p.m.
6 to 7, and then a regular meeting at 7.
special meeting.
We can take care of the Tom stuff at the special meeting.
Do you want to reach out to Candy about moving the meeting? Would that be
Yeah,
appropriate?
and then I got to talk to you about agenda. Pledge, public input. I'm not going to do town manager report on any of these. I think we just get down to
You
business.
mean at
It-
7,
it- like,
at 7 o'clock, right?
At 6 o'clock, at 7, I'm just going to basically keep the same agenda.
Continuation of
You gotta-
budget workshop?
Yeah, the special meeting for public, continue
Okay.
budget work, hopefully we'll have some
Well,
information.
and then a
The
regular-
Monday meeting should have it on the agenda to potentially act on the
Yes.
budget.
Yep,
Yes.
Yes,
okay. That, public input on
public meeting,
the
public
6th
comment.
and the 7th,
Yep.
because special meeting, right? And then
Yep.
it could be a long
You can do
public
that. If you
input, it
put
may go
public
I
go
comment
into
at
suspect
7.
that the
6
6
o'clock, we're not
o'clock
gonna
meeting
get
is
a
gonna
meeting.
be simply for public comment, because there's gonna be a lot of it.
Yeah, you're gonna have an hour's worth. of
We're
public
adding an
comment.
hour really for public comment.
Yeah.
That's fine.
I'll add other agenda items in case
I mean,
it's
you
not,
can,
so.
we could, so we'll open the 6 o'clock with pretty much the agenda that was on today's agenda, which
Except
is,
public comment.
except adding public comment.
Right.
So we might have a brief review of what we've talked about, if anybody's come up with another idea that they want to float, and then we open it up for public comment.
Paul, just to give you more work, can you put together a spreadsheet showing the different cuts that Troy asked for, the 500, the 800, and that? Just one page, new page,
Yep.
showing the breakdown. And if you would be willing to submit a document for us to have for that meeting as to what that would involve.
Oh, you've already had-
So what
you
you
already
just
have
did,
that.
those
Yeah.
slides. So we will have those for the special meeting, that would be.
You
I'll
should be
send
able
them to
to
you
just
then.
screenshot
Thank
that.
you.
I just wanna see
Send
if
them to him
that's
so he
right.
could be able to pull them up. Send them to-
Cheryl, just so,
And I'll send them to all of you as well.
just so I'm clear, you want one sheet that basically has that
Okay, if
highlighted?
you reduce education budget by this
Five-
amount,
this
this
is a million.
amount, this
Got it.
amount,
With
this
that.
is what it is, yes.
Okay.
And
Just
then-
give us a screenshot with the mill rate and the increase, right, Cheryl? That's all we need.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just what
Right,
that is.
so you can screenshot that and
Well,
call it the
not
$1 million.
but just one, everyone could side by side, and then we have we have her PowerPoint presentation of those pages showing what's involved in it, so that we could have that information.
I actually, I have to do it because he has the, we'll get what you need.
You'll get
No,
it.
you can just,
Yeah.
I'm just saying, but also should.
We'll get what you need.
Julie will send over those those pages of her PowerPoint where she shows what those cuts would be.
We need to
Thank
motion
you.
the special meeting.
Mayor asked, do we need to motion the special meeting? No, it's under general.
Can I
You
ask
say you're calling a special
one
meeting.
more question before we adjourn of Dr. Luby? When you've gone through this budget process beginning this year, and the original budget ask was $2.5+ million that you took to the Board of Education, and I think, as I remember watching a lot of those meetings and attending some of those meetings, you were pretty bare bone even at $2.5 million, right? And there was a lot of discussion with the Board of Education on what might get cut, what might not get cut. And then they gave you a number, and then you went through and looked at it for real and came up with what the best possible scenario was going to be with the $2 million, right?
She's nodding, yes, just
Yeah.
so for the people out there, she's
For the
nodding.
people at
So
home,
far,
she's
I'm
not,
with you.
yes, okay. You've seen 3 scenarios tonight. A $500, $800, $1 million adjustment to the ask, to your budget. I would ask that you think about, rather than just send us the slides on what you've prepared, here's what $1 million looks like. If you were truly faced with $1 million, would it be exactly what's on those slides, or would you have to sit back and go, all right, I've got to really dig in and figure this out? Because there were changes between what you thought was going to happen and what actually happened when they took the $500,000 off.
So when we took the 500, we got rid of everything that was new. That was 377, I think, and we got rid of 1 6th grade teacher, and that got us to 450, let's say, 460.
You might want to come back up just so people can hear you. Sorry to drag you out of the chair, but I think it's important that we have this chat before we adjourn.
Yes, so the 500,000 cut, you know, the board debated lots of different ways to actualize that, but ultimately we got rid of everything that was going to be new. And then we cut one sixth grade teacher, got us to about 450, 460. And during the time while that was happening, we hired a new head custodian, a new custodian to replace a regular custodian. Both of those had modest savings. We were able to renegotiate a concrete crane vendor that we use. We saved about 5,000 there. And then we decided to ride the rails a little bit, and we got it down to like $19,000. And we said, we're gonna count on turnover savings for that last little bit. We're not gonna cut a position for 19,000, but we figure that old guy's gonna retire, we're gonna hire this young guy, and we'll find 19,000 throughout the district.
I want to ask the question differently, I think maybe make it easier. So let's say, for the sake of this discussion, and this is discussion only, that you got $1 million reduction to the increase, to your ask, right? And now you're sitting down to actually implement that budget. Nothing on that slide you're going to send us is going to change?
That is how you get there. I mean, it's only people.
So you've done all the homework, there's no adjustment you would make, because if you're faced with that reality, I guess I'm trying to understand, the slide you're going to send us, it shows us what $1 million cut looks like. If you were faced with that reality, would you change it?
Let me say it's probably 90%. I would have to go through and figure out who each human is and what their salary is. And, you know, right now it's based on a typical teacher is $70,000. You know, they're based on averages, if you will, but that's probably 90% what it would look like.
And of course, I'm sorry, one thing. So if the budget, again, hypothetically was adjusted to this number, then of course it's net of whatever you might be able to negotiate with Gilbert. Because if Gilbert said, listen, we'll come in with 3, now you're 7s, that's a whole different adjustment.
Well, you saw the 500 slides. It would still be all that and part of the million.
Okay.
Those slides are realistic, whether or not, I mean, there's really nowhere else to go. When you're getting up to $1 million, I'm trying to remember, I think at 1.5 we canceled specials and shortened the day. At 1 million, we got rid of pretty much everyone we could. Like,
Well,
there's not a lot of fudge room there. The only variable would be if we take the whole and use, you know, I did the math too. It's a 1.5% cushion I have with that $400,000. I might apply that.
I just wanted to understand, and I think we'd all like to understand, if it actually happened, would those slides change? Would there be adjustments that you would, you know, not, it's one thing to hypothetically talk about it. It's another when you're sitting with that budget and go, okay, I've got to really make it work. Would it change?
So we've been sort of moving towards that throughout the whole process, going from very theoretical to very practical. Before I actually give someone a pink slip, you can believe I'm going to figure out who the teachers are, what their actual salaries, and try and salvage one position, or make a judicious choice that I can keep 2 people by getting rid of this one other, but largely, that is the magnitude, and largely those would be the decisions.
Okay.
So
It's pretty
hypothetically,
accurate.
Gilbert could give you 400,000, that would be a good neighbor, and you got 400,000 in a little bit of savings, that's $800,000. If it's $1 million cut, it's only $200,000. So that changes the whole thing. Or if it's an $800,000 cut, it's a 0 cut for you.
Except
So
it is a
there's
$400,000
none of that goes away.
budget.
It's all ifs, though.
No, but I'm just
If
saying,
Gilbert gave it
hypothetically, that could happen.
Yeah, she does build $400,000 cliff into her budget next year because she's taking it out of savings, which wouldn't be there next year to do.
Right.
So that would be potentially one issue.
Times are tough, you gotta do some
But
things when
my
you're tough.
crazy feeling is if I'm gonna lose those people, I may as well wait a year to lose them. Right? That's, I think, what the cliff means.
Well, by the way, in a year, maybe ECS got better and a whole lot of things changed, right? So.
The catch though is if I get one really expensive special education cost in the middle of the year, I'm laying off a teacher in the middle of the year.
Which could increase
Or-
costs too.
Going to the town manager and saying, we just blew our budget. I mean, there's stories of other districts that go back to the town and say, no kidding, we're $80 million over budget. Like, I'm not really sure that you're allowed to do that legally, and yet it does happen.
Those emergencies.
I'm
Like,
sorry?
That's those emergencies.
With
transfers.
0 in the savings account instead of the 1.5% that I said.
I understand where you're sitting.
That's
But I'm saying we have to be creative here.
I'm all in for creative. I don't know if I would go to the full 400, I might do like 250. I mean, one kid is $150,000.
Right.
Like,
I do hope.
I don't go to the casino for a reason, I'm not good at this. But I will take advantage of anything I can figure out rather than lose humans. So, yes, that is a very realistic scenario that I've given you, with the possible exception of if there is any reduction on the part of the Gilbert School, or if we apply some of that 400,000, which is irresponsible, but also responsible. Like, weirdly both at the same time, so.
Right.
I hope you have very good discussions with Mr. Susan.
Me too. Wish you luck.
And I do hope your teachers come to work tomorrow after hearing the conversation tonight. I know that I had a teacher tell me after the last meeting where the education was discussed that she carries a resignation letter in her glove box because she's so fed up with the way our town teaches, deals with stuff. So I do hope that
That is
all the teachers
another
out.
crazy reality, yes.
I do hope the teachers listening understand that.
My concern right now is, what you just said before, was that the Board of Education voted not to have you go and ask Gilbert for a reduction. Is that what you said before?
I'd have to go back and look at them and see if they voted. Somebody suggested that they do that, and they agreed that they weren't going to do that.
Okay.
Vote,
So do
not
you
vote.
need your board's authority, permission, since it wasn't granted before, to go to Gilbert and ask for that reduction?
I'm gonna go out on a limb and say you've all directed me, and Kurt's probably not.
I was having a conversation with them tomorrow anyways, based on what was
Okay.
gonna happen.
It would be similar to,
I have a
I've
very good
negotiated with
relationship
others.
with
Yeah,
them.
no, I'm sure you do.
and it
I
would be
just wanted-
similar to her
I want
calling
that
the bus
relationship
company
to
and
work
saying, I
out,
need you to
so-
give us a discount. So I don't see why you can't talk to vendors.
Right. And I do. I think
Right.
this is a very unusual situation, and there's a lot of dynamics and trying to,
I just
mitigate
wanna make
feelings
sure that
and
She can do what we're asking of her to do.
we will make sure that the question is posed.
It's been done before, Cheryl. I mean,
I know,
right in this room.
but there
so-
wasn't a vote that said, don't do it,
forgiveness
so that's
later.
the hysteria.
Well, I don't, do you remember, Kurt, any type of action by the board that prohibited her from speaking to Gilbert about a reduction?
It was brought up before we got into discussion of our budget. In our workshop that because Gilbert passed their budget before we passed ours. And it was brought up that we go to them and open their budget the day after we voted on their budget. And our board decided to say, let's go through our process.
Yeah, so you didn't vote to direct her not to do that. You just felt they passed their budget, so and we haven't finished ours yet, we don't need to go ask it yet.
Okay.
Yeah, but the time is now.
Yes.
Madam Superintendent, thank you.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Chairman, thank you. Troy?
If anyone thinks of anything you'd like me to come prepared with, feel free to send along questions so that I can be of most help.
Snacks.
Thank you so much.
Might be a long meeting.
Motion to adjourn, Mr. Mayor.
She's usually very good with that, especially at our committee meetings.
I'll second-
Thank you, Mr.
I'll second
Chairman.
the motion to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. 6 o'clock Monday night.
The TV, if your mics are on, turn them off, and I gotta